Welcome back to the back corner.
Welcome to the back. Whenever I hear this music, I can never decide if I should be dancing or getting ready to fight for the freedom of Scotland.
Yes.
You can do both.
I think the answer is yes.
There we go.
Just one chance
To come back and tell the English
English
that they can take our lives, but they'll never take
our freedom. Oh, man.
That apparently is like the most historically inaccurate movie of all time.
I don't care.
I don't either.
It's awesome.
As a myth, I'll take it. Yeah.
Apparently, in my ancestry, I'm related to like the king that everyone hates in that movie.
Apparently,
So
Robert the Bruce was the guy in that story that was referred to as Braveheart.
Oh, really?
Like William Wallace wasn't, like that's how inaccurate it is.
No kidding, eh?
They didn't have kilts yet. That came like a long years later.
What about the Irish guy? My island. That guy.
It's my island.
Yeah. The Lord says he can get me out of this, but I'm pretty sure you're effed.
I don't know about that guy. I haven't dug that deep.
Historical figure.
I'm sure there were Irish people at that time.
Yeah.
So let's say he was real.
And this has been Deep Dive into Braveheart as we start off this episode.
Movie review here in the back corner.
Welcome back to the Dozens.
Welcome back to the Dozens and the Dozens.
And the Dozens, yeah. We actually, maybe it's been a few episodes since we've asked for, give us a like and subscribe.
Yes.
Give us a share.
It's so, it helps more people find us.
Yeah,
we have to play the algorithm.
Yeah, we want to be the dozens of dozens. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're closing in.
Totally.
So we should someone do the math on how many is dozens of dozens. What is the minimum? Someone asked,
144 is a dozen dozens.
144, but dozens of dozens.
Dozens of
What
dozens.
is the minimum?
Oh, gee.
For dozens of dozens. That's what we need to.
144 times 12. Ron, producer Ron, are you on it?
What's 444?
No, that's a
that's
dozen.
a dozen dozens.
Right, so dozens of dozens.
What's the minimum dozens of dozens?
Would be
the same way where I did last
episode. 144 times 24.
144 times 24? Yeah. No. Dozens of dozens? Oh, dude.
Be 2 dozen dozens.
Our Bible college math is just getting exposed right now. We're not some smart people coming up, actually.
I can tell you this, though. If a dozen dozens is 144, 10% of that is $14.40. That's my Bible college math. You tell me a dollar figure, I will tell you what your tithe is.
Oh, man. We will actually. We've got today. We got a really good episode. So it's going to be kind of a part 2 of a 2-parter of interviews we did at the XY conference.
Yes.
So we got an awesome conversation with Justin Kendrick coming up about sexuality, the male battle for sexual purity. It's going to be good. Probably not for your little kids, but again, like we said last episode, if you're too young to be at XY,
if you listen to the our last episode with John Tyson and talked about those coming of age things, and you've got a son in your life. Maybe save this episode for when he's going through his coming of age thing. You've reached a point. You can listen to the XY episodes of the back corner.
6 years from now, some real intentional dad.
Totally.
He's 14 now. He was 8 when I listened to this, and now
son,
it's time.
You put this on this thumb drive. Back in 2025. If we can find something that will still read a thumb drive.
This has been in Google Drive for 6 years. And now it's time for you.
Survive the nuclear holocaust.
But actually, I'm excited about the weeks to come. We've got some really cool guests coming up.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited.
Like some really cool guests coming up that are just going to be interesting and fun. Right here in the back corner. No time machine required.
No time machine. No road trip.
But it is today, once again, just the two of us. That was a bad cue, though. We need to. Where's the chorus? Oh, man. That's a fail. That's a fail. Where's the DJ? There we go.
Brent and I.
You get that cue wrong every time. Yeah, it's just the two of us once again. Today, we are going to cover a few things before we get into our conversation with Justin. But we have any official sponsors?
Our official sponsor, once again, this week is OneCon.
Yes.
OneCon, Atlantic Canada's largest youth conference for middle school and high school students and maybe other people. Their leaders. It's in Moncton. You can find out more information at onecon.ca.
What's the date of it? Ron, you know the date off the top of your head? It's end of May, early June. You should probably know that. Go to onecon.ca for all your information, but
it'll tell you.
Ron's
May 30th and 31st.
May 30th
and 31st.
Friday and Saturday. It is truly awesome. We've got there's some performing artists coming in, speakers coming in, and then like just the whole vibe of it. There's thousands of kids. Yeah. Have you ever been able to see it?
I've never been.
Road trip this year.
Yeah, I'll be there this year.
You got to come up because it's.
I've always had stuff going on the weekend,
man.
But now that I kind of just goof off on the weekends,
well, you live an hour closer now.
I do. I live a lot closer.
So it's they have like we rent the Moncton Coliseum, and the Moncton Coliseum has like 3 kind of giant warehouses. And those are full of like inflatable games. That's like just amazing. It's massive, and there's kids everywhere. It's crazy. It's so fun. So it's worth sending your teen to. Absolutely. And I'm excited. My kids are pumped. So
I always sent my kids. I just never was able to tag along.
Yeah. Fun story. My daughter is part of the dozen, so she's going to hear this. But last year,
Ava.
Last year, Melanie and I we show up because we like to just be there, and it's it's watching a dream I had come true. Yeah, totally. So I love just being around and soaking it in what God's doing. So we show up, Mel and I, and we get there, and there's this overhang that looks down over all the inflatable games. There's just kids everywhere, and I'm looking around, and there's my daughter, and there's this dude moving in on her. I was like, who is this guy, and do I need to get on stage and call him out? Like, is that what's going to happen right now? It was the first time I'd ever seen boys around my daughter too. Yeah. So that was like it was jarring. I wasn't ready for that.
Just picturing you pulling out the buck knife and sharpening it up.
You know what? I thought I was going to be a hard dad on that stuff. Well, maybe I haven't. I just haven't met a punk. Yeah. But so far, any of the boys that my daughter has hung around, I've been pretty much a softie. Yeah. But that's daddy's girl, right?
There you go.
I mean, but I'm sure you break her heart. You're gonna.
I got all boys. I've never worried about
it. you have the breakers. You're the breakers, not the delicate little flower. So yeah, that was funny though. Last year, Mel and I both like, who is that and what is he doing?
Did we figure it out? Did we have to talk to
him? I think Melanie did. It turned out to be a non-issue. Okay. So anyway, it was all a lot of nothing.
If that guy is listening right now, he can't tell whether he can't decide whether he's relieved or insulted. I'm not a non-issue.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I got moves. I'm a cool dude.
He's gearing up for this year, round 2.
He spent the last 265 days psyching himself, dude. Hey man,
take another swing.
Tell me that as a guy who grew up going to youth camps and youth rallies, dude, there was always that girl. You're like, man,
I married her.
Well, there you go,
dude. I kid you not. I mean, you know who my wife is. Like I would like sit in a section just to get a glimpse.
There you go.
So she was, way out of my league too.
Well, yes,
I was younger. So I would have been the coolest 8th grader there, though. I'll tell you that. If we started dating while I was in grade 8, and she was in high school, I would have been the coolest.
Yeah, no, we would have crowned you the king.
She wouldn't have been the king, but I sure would have.
No, people would have said she was kind.
I would have had intro music everywhere I went, like just. Here he comes. Here
the glass shatter like the Stone Cold Steve Austin.
You win.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it turned out it wasn't until we were in our 20s that started taking form. But
there you go.
Anyway, there's nothing like the youth romance.
I like that. There's kind of an inception moment here of you being at a rally, witnessing a dream you had with your wife.
Oh, layered.
Who is a dream you had.
We're layers.
Dreams come true for Brent Ingersoll. That's the moral of this story.
They do. God is good. God is good all the time. All the time. God is good. That deserves a horn blast. I have an unofficial sponsor.
Okay, who's your unofficial sponsor?
So, member of the Dozens.
Okay.
Josiah Rogerson. Yes. Also, this year's runner-up to the XY Arm Wrestling Championship. What a battle.
Former champion.
Last
year. Lost this year.
I feel like he's going to come back next year with something to prove. I think he was caught off guard. I think he thought he was going to run through it this year.
I don't think he knew what he was facing. James, who won, Not a tall man.
For people who are listening or weren't at the XY Men's Conference, we have done this the last couple of years where we have an arm wrestling table and there's an arm wrestling championship, and we do the
full tournament.
We do the championship round in the final session, and so it was Josiah and your boy, what's his name?
James Smith.
James, yeah. It was a battle, man. They fought.
They went hard.
My arm would have snapped in there. Like those were some big boys.
James is powerful, man.
Clearly, because you see Josiah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
James and I worked out together he was my gym buddy when I was in Halifax. We worked out that night. We went to the gym after the arm wrestling thing, the night before. And
that's why he won. You guys were doing forearm work,
dude. He took it easy. He's like, I want to save it for tomorrow, man. but we'll be like doing like barbell press or dumbbell press, and I'm like, he'll pick up some 20 pounders or something just to warm up, and I'll be working through, and just about where I get to the weight I'm crapping out on, he's like, all right, I'll finish my warm up, and he'll just grab those out of my hands, and
he's clearly very strong.
He is.
He didn't look huge either. I mean, he's a big guy, but not like Josiah looks like, he's carved out of stone.
Yeah, James is stocky. Josiah is like strapping.
Yeah. He looks like nice Gaston.
I'll show you a picture of James like with the post workout pump though. He's pretty
big boy.
He also, if you noticed his incredible work getting the crowd engaged. James,
he totally did like a wrestler.
James was a pro wrestler.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, like not WWE, but
that deserves a.
If you are a maritimer of a certain generation, James has indeed toured with Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he totally was getting the.
Oh, totally.
He was almost doing the Hulk Hogan.
He was 100% Tommy Star
thing,
mode,
like the pump up the crowd.
Totally. Yeah, get him going.
Wasn't that I'm pretty sure on like the old wrestling games on like Sega Genesis, which is back here by the way.
There you go.
Part of winning was like not just fighting, but you had to like get the crowd pumped up.
Never played those games, but it would make sense.
Wrestling. So anyway, Josiah, member of the Dozens and this year's runner-up to the arm wrestling championship of the world at XY. He brought us. So today's unofficial sponsor is Sussex Ice Cream.
Oh,
wait, it gets better. So look at this.
There we go, baby.
Look at the top. Crosby's molasses flavored.
It continues.
Ice cream. Sussex ice cream. Crosby's molasses flavored. So, yeah, this is. Shall we?
Mm-hmm. I already am.
Oh man, there's actually molasses deposits down in there.
Well, that's good. I enjoy it.
Wow.
Yeah, Sussex ice cream is so good.
It tastes like
that's become our go-to if we're gonna not Haagen-Dazs, not Ben and Jerry's, if we're gonna spoil ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Far superior to Chapman's. Just saying.
I can't eat cheap ice cream anymore.
Yeah, get a little bougie in my old age. This is phenomenal. This is really good. Ron, I would offer you a bite, but I have the black lung. Wow. How long do we go eating this? Because
I think this is the show today.
watch
two middle-aged men pound a pint of ice cream.
Here's a little ASMR for you. There's big cookie chunks in it. You see that, Ron? So basically, someone's taken Katie Peterson's molasses cookies and dumped them down into a vat of Sussex maple ice cream.
It was my friend Jeremy Vincent's in-laws.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they own Sussex ice cream.
I really need to stop, both for terms of calories and listenership. I need to stop eating this, but it's delicious. So, yeah.
Okay, so we gotta pause and put the stuff back in the freezer, though. I'm not gonna let this melt for the sake of the show.
Shout out to
Massive
Sussex.
shout out.
I think it'll be all right for another 45 minutes. We're already half done this show.
All right,
it'll be all right. In fact, we're gonna need to empty it and put it in the back corner. Put one of these in one of these containers.
I'll take care of emptying it. Dude, I've had wicked heartburn for days, and that ice cream is just making me so happy.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But it won't give you heartburn? Or will it?
It might eventually, but in the short term, it's It's helping.
Isn't it? I seem to recall a sermon by a guy named AJ Thomas that talked about how, like a Baconator, sin it promises deliciousness on the front end and disaster.
Do you want to hear the other Baconator story? Mm-hmm. So I shared that story in a sermon, and I share it later in this podcast.
Oh yeah,
I do.
Wow,
Yeah, I thought you were doing that on purpose.
No, I didn't do that on purpose, but yeah.
So, you'll hear the other Baconator story, but basically it makes Baconators a metaphor for sin. One time, I had a horrible stomach flu. And I could not, went days and couldn't seem to get my stomach settled down. Just anything I ate came right back. And my wife came to me and she said, look, is there anything I can pick you up? I said, do you know what I would love right now? I'd love a Baconator.
Wow, that's risky.
And she went and bought me, we lived pretty close to a Wendy's at those days. We lived on Auburn Drive in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, in the shadow of the arena where Sidney Crosby was playing. And she ran up the corner, grabbed me a Baconator, brought it back. I wolfed that thing down and was fine ever.
So it both harmed you and healed you.
Baconators give, and Baconators take away. Blessed be the Baconator.
Take away.
It has cured one of the worst stomach flus I ever had, and it has given me the worst case of food poisoning I've ever had.
Wow. Well,
that's where the metaphor breaks down, though. So you can't tell both of those stories and have a coherent sermon illustration.
There you go.
But I've got a real mixed bag of experiences with Baconator.
So if you got the flu right now, or you're listening to this, try a Baconator.
Try a Baconator.
See what happens.
And if you can't stop vomiting and recently had a Baconator, it was probably that.
It was probably a Baconator.
Especially if you bought that Baconator.
Oh, that's funny.
In Moncton.
Speaking of, there's a old school music reference for you. Blessed be your name.
Yeah.
Our Mountainous top 4 today.
We're gonna come up later.
We're gonna hit old school praise and worship.
Legitimately, I don't think there's any voice that more it's a Pavlovian thing for me, but that makes me more ready to worship than Matt Redman's voice.
Yeah.
I hear an old recording of him, and I'm just right there.
That Face Down album.
Yep.
That one that gets me to this day.
Yeah.
His stuff holds up.
It totally does.
I leaned over to Dan recently at one of our services. They sung "Blessed Be Your Name."
Yep.
And I was like, this one might make it into the halls of eternity.
Yeah.
It's pushing 30 years old now. So
is it really that old?
It's got to be. It's got to be.
Ron, you do a little live research for us there.
Look that up, Ron. When was "Blessed Be Your Name" written? I'm gonna guess. Let me give a guess here. I'm gonna say 1997.
2005.
2002.
Okay, we were both wrong.
There we go.
Split the difference. Enjoy your ice cream. Mm-hmm. Ron, since we're talking to you, did you have ice cream for breakfast?
No.
What did you? Oh.
Fellas, I got a question.
Oh my God.
Well, the sun is shining, the birds are singing. Another fine morning.
Is this pentatonics?
The joy bells ringing. Ding dong.
Oh, jeepers.
This is a little more doo-wop than barbershop.
Yep.
And I feel like there's a slight difference.
Hey Ron, what's your secret, my man? What makes you dance? What makes you stand? Hey Ron, what did you have for breakfast?
Yeah, it's gonna be a B-side for me.
That's
They try to do barbershop.
When we release
but
the
they fail.
25th anniversary edition, we'll throw this on so people think they're getting something new. But
Yeah, it didn't make it. Yeah, that was supposed to be barbershop.
Yeah, they tried hard, but
Yeah.
they
Did
couldn't.
you notice it sounded really computery when they were doing that bend?
Yeah. A little,
There ain't
do you
nothing like
believe in
the-
life after love?
There ain't nothing like the real thing, like a good barbershop fifth voice. You know what the fifth voice is? So if a really good barbershop quartet are hitting nice 4-part harmony,
It sounds like
there's a sound like there's 5 voices in
That's
there.
cool.
And they
Like
call
a
that
resonance.
the fifth voice.
That's cool.
Yeah. If anybody wants to go on the deep dive in barbershop, the greatest barbershop quartet of all time, if I was going to go my Mountainous top 4 of barbershop quartets,
Go for it.
there's only one.
Yeah.
And it's called the Bluegrass Student Union Band.
Okay.
And they are phenomenal.
I'm going to go with whatever the barbershop group was that Homer Simpson was in.
Oh, the B Sharps.
Yes.
Yeah.
The fame was
Yeah.
like a drug, but even more like a drug were the drugs.
What a hilarious, like that they were like, let's do a barbershop episode or Homer and the boys.
And what was the one where there's like something that suddenly it was always like, what, did you do something stupid? Like say you were bigger than Jesus? It was the name of our third album.
Baby on board,
that was it.
How I adore with my baby on board. Oh, so good.
This ice cream is way too good.
Yeah, you're gonna need to put that aside, man. It's your window to weight gain. also a deep cut Homer Simpson's reference. Remember that one where he was trying to gain all the weight to get on workers' comp, and he goes to Dr. Nick and he's like, if you can see the grease through the paper bag, it is your window to weight gain. Yeah,
that sounds valid.
Good advice. Ron, breakfast. What did you have?
1 scrambled egg.
All right.
Oh,
You are
one
you're
scrambled
zagging.
egg.
Zagging.
Are you low on eggs, or that's just enough to
That's
satisfy?
literally it. We only had 1 egg.
The other things are starting to catch up to Cheerios.
You buy eggs by the dozen, or you do the 18s?
18s.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm all about the 18s.
I'm going through eggs like crazy.
2 eggs a day.
Oh, I'm more like 4 to 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't do 4 to 6. Well, I could, but it would take me quite a while.
It's the carnivore.
Yeah.
It's the carnivore thing. I mean, I'm not full carnivore, although hey, I was really encouraged. A lot of the dozens have come up to me and they said I'm trying the carnivore.
Really?
Yeah. And there's some guys out there, like I know Aaron and St. Stephen, like there's some guys that are getting some pretty good results from it. So it's just it's like a easy way to try to shift your diet. So.
I think there is something to be said for anything that forces you to be really intentional about what you're eating.
Exactly.
Like, unless it's in, like, I think if you did, like, I'm doing an only cotton candy diet, like, that wouldn't help. But just anything that's got any sort of remote
rules.
Well, yeah. And just that forces you to think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a vegetarian for a couple of years. And eventually I got to the point where I just ate pasta all the time.
Right.
Which is terrible for you, right? Yeah. And it was just one of those, like, at first it was really good for me, but then I fell into a rut.
Right.
And so then you got to do something to shake it up.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So we got a couple segments to run through before we get to our conversation with Justin Kendrick.
Yeah.
So first one, here we go. I think we do have some intro music. This is Keep It or Sweep It, everyone's favorite segment where we decide whether something we should keep
or sweep.
Get rid of it. Is it worth
good?
Keeping?
Is it bad?
I think today we have a Instagram reel to react to. So what do we got, Ronnie?
Why do Catholics pray to Mary? Look at it this way.
Baby.
I'm a priest, right? So people often ask me to help with lots of different things. They email, they call, they text, but sometimes I get busy and I fall behind on requests. So you know what people do? If I'm not responding, they call my mom. They call my mom, then she calls me and says, hey, so-and-so's been trying to reach out to you. Can you please get back to them? And you bet I get back to them right away. Sometimes the fastest way to the Son is through the mother. And there's something beautiful about that. God chose to become a baby. He became part of a family. He had a real mother. That's the basis of Christianity. So why would we think it would be so different for Jesus and Mary? Sometimes the fastest way to the Son is through the mother. Praying to Mary makes all the sense in the world. Hope you found that helpful. Follow for more.
You want to go first?
So keep or sweep, praying to Mary and the saints.
Yeah. I mean that video we could react to specifically, and I'm happy to. But yeah, let's broaden it out as well.
Let's go video, but then let's broaden it out because there is a better conversation to be had. Sweep that video. That sucked.
That's terrible.
That was. But
as someone who is generally pretty sympathetic towards,
if you were turning your nose up, it's a bad sign.
Yeah, I'd like to think even most of my Catholic friends would go, "Yeah, that's pretty stupid."
It's a weak argument.
It's borderline blasphemous.
It's a weak argument for something that's not as black and white as a lot of Protestants would want it
Absolutely.
to be. So I'm up for the conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I do appreciate. That gets us into the conversation. So thanks for the video, Ron. But I'm gonna unfollow that guy. So that was. I'm not building theology based on human sociological like
I mean,
sometimes the best way to the son is through the mother.
To me, that whole take it's so, because he's trying to make this brilliant argument, but it's actually predicated upon all the things that Protestants who are firmly against praying to, we can clarify later what that actually means, praying to the saints. It's predicated on all the things that are actually the most valid critiques of that.
Right.
Like the reason, if there is a reason to pray to the saints, it is not because you can't get Jesus' attention.
Yes.
And it's not because Mary bosses him around.
Which is kind of what he's implying there.
Basically, the idea is you need to get him in trouble with his mom. He can't handle all these requests.
Yeah.
And so in order to get yourself prioritized to the top, you got who apparently his mom can. Right. His mom can take all these requests.
Seems like Mary's preeminent.
Yeah, it does, it does seem like in that framework, Mary loves us all and is omnipotent and omniscient. And Jesus is doing his best, but dang it, sometimes you got to rattle his cage a little bit to get some attention.
Yeah,
that's why I say, like, it is, to me, that is borderline blasphemous. What that implies about the limitedness and the character of Jesus. Take Mary out of the equation, like what it's saying about her. Like, sure, okay, maybe Mary, I don't think it's true. Maybe Mary can hear everybody all at once and she loves everybody all at once. Cool, great.
Yeah.
But what does that say about Jesus?
He probably would run to like John chapter 3 in the wedding at Cana. Is it 3 or 2?
Yeah, I don't know.
3, I think.
It is,
but
written.
And where Jesus is just doing his thing, and then like it was Mary that knew that they'd run out of wine, and she goes and tells, like, gets his attention and tells them. And
but I think Christ mid-incarnation, is a different kettle of fish than the exalted, risen, ascended, seated at the right hand of God the Father. All authority has been given to me
on our behalf.
Totally.
Yeah. I believe so. There were some.
I mean, I do
other
think
factors at play.
I do think that is a valid argument for what, like if adult Jesus respected Mary that much, that he said, "My time hasn't come," and she said, "I don't care, fix it."
Right.
Like that doesn't say that she's in charge of him, but it does. There
was a relational.
Yeah, well, and
reciprocity.
in the so much of the Protestant and Catholic divide, I think, is predicated on overreactions or the differences. And I think that when Protestants kind of, as I understand it, I'm sure some of my Catholic friends will correct me when they hear this, but as I understand it, a lot of the more I'm gonna use a loaded word, extreme, but views of Mary were maybe not originally thought up post-Reformation, but were kind of canonized, were kind of carved in stone. And I think what you had, like, maybe a little over-focus on Mary, and then the Protestants went, no focus on Mary. And then the Catholics went, so much focus on Mary. And then somehow we as Protestants, like, I don't ever remember hearing a story about Mary as a hero of the faith growing up.
Yeah.
Like, despite her, I mean,
in the Bible as such.
Right. Like, growing up in the Wesleyan tradition, we love Romans chapter 12, present your body a living sacrifice. Like, who exemplifies that better than Mary?
Literally.
Like, literally, her physical body offered to God. Like, but you would never hear that, because I think there was this, like, if you talk about Mary at all, other than as a walk-on character in the Christmas story, right? She's allowed out for about 2 weeks in December.
Yeah.
She can she can get the message from the angel. We don't even make a big deal about her saying yes to it.
Yeah.
And she can give birth to Jesus, and then she'll be,
then move along.
Right.
You make a great
see
point.
In 12 months.
Like, maybe there's been a Protestant overreaction to it, so much so that, like, just apples to apples, like, most Protestants would think, like, in the pantheon of heroes of the faith, Paul and Peter, James and Elijah and Job and, like, all these, like, heroes, but, like, they would never mention Mary.
Well, that's just it. Like, I think the notion that she is head and shoulders above, I think you could argue she is above a Peter or a Paul, but certainly the idea that she's leagues above, I think instead of going, like, let's put her back down in the top tier of humans.
Yeah, she's on the All-Star team.
Right. We like Protestants pushed her down to, again, like walk on character for a given season.
Minor league, minor role.
Right. The disciples, they all ran away, but there's Mary at the foot of the cross, right?
She is an A-list Christian celebrity.
Well, I mean, if you're talking capital S saints,
yes.
Like, I think she, she's on the dream team. She's in that top tier. She's
on the mountain's top 4.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I agree. I'm still not going to pray to her.
No, me neither.
And I think so. What is the if you're a Catholic, and I'm like, so why would I pray to Mary or subsequently a saint? Like why?
Here's the best argument I've heard for it, and ironically, I heard it from a dyed-in-the-wool Wesleyan, Keith Drury.
Okay, yeah.
But it's the idea
who is in the great cloud of witnesses.
He is in the great cloud of witnesses. Yeah. If you're listening, Keith, brother, no, just kidding.
We got any dozens up there in the cloud of witnesses. In the cloud of witnesses. You never know.
But it would be this idea, right? I don't think it's crazy, the thought of asking a saint to pray for you, which is what, to be clear, in my understanding of solid Catholic theology, when we say pray to a saint, you're not actually asking them to do something so much as you're asking them to intercede on your behalf. Yes. Right? You're asking them to pray for you.
Similar to if I went to you and said, AJ, can you pray for me?
Exactly.
Like, could you ask the Lord with
pray,
me? Let's touch and agree.
We tend to think that pray means to like petition the divine, but it means it's a more low-level definition of it is just to ask, right? Like if you take Old English, like, I pray thee, take a seat, right? Right? Like I don't mean I acknowledge you as divine. I just mean I'm asking
request.
You, right? It's And so to request from a saint or to ask a saint for help is ultimately, I think in the best understanding of that, at least, you're asking them to pray for you. So the idea would be, like if I would ask someone else to pray for me, I would probably ask, anyone who wants to pray for me, you're welcome to pray for me. But if you said to me, there's this big thing coming up, AJ, you need to ask some people to pray for you, I'm going to ask the people I think are closest to Jesus.
The heavy hitters.
Right.
The prayer of a righteous man availeth much.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who prays regularly,
Yep.
who knows how to pray the Lord's will,
Yep.
Who is someone who is, again, a righteous person.
You got faith, faithfulness,
totally,
all that.
And so the idea would be, well, we've got these, who would, Peter would qualify. Paul, so to me, where it breaks down is actually not on the question of, does it make sense to ask someone like that to intercede for you? It's, can they hear? Like, do they know?
Yeah.
And I tend to think not, but depending on your interpretation of things like the cloud of witnesses, like, are they as in witnessing what we're doing, or are they like, what are they a witness to?
Us. Yeah.
Are they witnessing to us? Are they witnessing us?
Yeah.
Or are they witnesses to Christ?
Yeah.
And we're part of, like, we're on the trailing end of that cloud.
I tend to think, and I couldn't give you any biblical reason why, I tend to think that people who are absent from the body but present with Christ, if they don't have an awareness of what's going on earth, they have a direct connection to the one who does. And it's like, at very least, I could say, it's funny, actually, John Tyson, who was on our thing last time, I get to have dinner with him, and he was talking to me about a book he was reading, and he's like, mate, I just wept. And I forget what the guy's name was, and I stopped, and I was like, Lord, if you could tell Bob that I'm here in Manhattan right now, just getting floored by his life, could you let him know? I said, thanks. And I was like,
that's great.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Right? Like, is that beyond the Spirit of God to be able to be like, Lord, could you tell my grandfather happy birthday?
Yeah.
Is that
I don't know.
Is God one, it's definitely not beyond God.
No.
But is that too superficial for him to be like, could you tell my grandpa I love him?
My hope in this stuff, when I think of whatever, the beatific afterlife, heaven, paradise, eternity with God, my hope has always been, and the reason I tend not to believe in praying to saints, and the reason I tend not to believe in, my grandfather's looking down on me and all that, it's like, I just hope they've got something better to do. Like, I hope that the presence of God is so overwhelmingly blissful that earth just drifts from your mind.
It does seem, though, when you read like Revelation 5, it seems as though when that pulls back the veil a little bit, there is a carried forward burden that the saints who are with the Lord right now still have, because they're crying out still, like, how long before you bring justice on the earth?
Yeah.
So there is a sense there that,
I'm not arguing for my position. I just always hope that's the case.
That's the hope. But like, or on the flip side, if you are being caught up in the Lord and, you see things more clearly and you share his heart, well, his heart and his focus is invested in his purposes being fleshed out on the earth. So,
and I think that pulls you back to that whole question too of, I mean, people would talk about it using term like intermediate state or whatever, but like, what is the difference in the existence and the experience of someone who died 5 years ago versus once the end of all things has come, right? Like the new heaven and the new earth that comes down from God.
Yep.
Like, I mean, we know for a fact there's one difference is the resurrected body.
Yes.
Right.
But so there is some intermediate thing.
Yeah. So what else is there though? Like, are those martyrs that are calling out, like, are they going to do that forever? Or are they just doing that until that second coming, which doesn't impact on this, because if, like, whatever that intermediate state is, what we're talking about saints and Mary. And
I do think the saints who are dead, or even loved ones who are dead with the Lord, are in one sense enjoying themselves. Like Jesus said to the thief on the cross, like, today you'll be with me in paradise, not like you're going to be with me in a white room while we hang out until we wrap this whole thing up, like
today you will be with me in the waiting room.
You're going to be with me. What's that show on Apple, Severance? You're going to be with me on like the severed floor of,
never seen it.
It's a cool concept actually, but like, so obviously I believe they're with him. I believe they're conscious, because some people believe in like the sleep of the dead.
Yep.
Which, fine. I mean, this is open-handed theology stuff. It doesn't change the end game at all. So we can speculate and you can have your opinion. I think, Paul says to be absent from the body is present with Christ. I think they're conscientious. They have agency. They know who they are. They know what's going on. I think they do have some kind of perspective on, the unfolding of the scroll of the universe that the Lamb is doing. Like and they're interceding in some way. Like I have to believe there's some level of participation. Like would the Lord stop short of redeeming us just insofar that we can have fun, in eternity with him or like, is he gonna like let us partner with him in his purposes, which seems to be what he is interested in the whole time.
And it does. I mean, Scripture is clear that eventually we will rule and reign.
Yeah.
Right.
But
and so it would make sense that there's some, like, that it's not just like you're just in a holding pattern until we get to all the way there, right? Like sort of the whole already not yet. Like what is the alreadiness of ruling and reign, even though there is a more not yet to come?
So I guess to come full circle, here's where I would go with this. I do believe that like the saints could be prayed to. And I understand maybe in the context of what you were saying about like these are the most righteous human beings that have ever lived, with the exception of Jesus.
Yeah.
So like that does make sense to me, and I love having a righteous brother or sister pray for me, on the earth. So why not, get somebody in the heavenlies to do that? But so I can go there, but I don't.
Yeah.
And the reason is, I'm in a stage right now. I've been really loving John Eldredge's new book, Experiencing Jesus Really. And the journey I'm on right now, if this were to turn into a processing segment, I'm really trying to learn how to engage Jesus, like Jesus Christ, the risen Christ, as a person, like in real time, like me and you.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that's his desire, and the people who like seem to live the most fruitful lives have a level of familiarity and like daily connectivity with him, like his voice and what he's saying and what he's doing, and that direct access. And to it seems like taking an extra step to get to where I really want. If I'm going to pray to a saint, it's like, I actually want to talk to the guy. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's where kind of my thinking goes on. And again, I'd be similar to you in that, like, I don't think it's categorically insane or categorically idolatry or whatever else. Provided, you're asking them to intercede as opposed to asking them to act some way directly. Where it breaks down for me is, again, back to the idea of, even if they have some level of awareness of what's going on the earth or whatever, like the notion that Saint Joseph can hear the prayers of all people in all places,
right,
who are praying to him at any given time. Like, does he have that maybe he might have that amount of connection to the earth, but does it that breadth, right? Like, I don't know. That seems like a stretch. But yeah, I do think, and I've never talked to my friends who pray to saints enough to really know on this, but it seems to me that often that saint takes on an intermediary role in a way that my friends don't. Like, if I texted my parents right now and said, would you pray for me about this? They're going to pray for me, but I'm also going to talk to Jesus about it directly.
Right.
And it seems to me sometimes that it's more of like, you can't, which is sort of what this guy's saying. You can't get to Jesus directly.
That's a good point.
So you need an intermediary. Like, you're not asking them to come with you.
Yeah.
You're asking them to go between you.
Which I do think is heresy.
Yeah.
Like, I just do think that's...
Or at the very least, it's unnecessary.
It's a deception.
Like, when someone comes to you and says, hey, Pastor, will you pray for me? I go, sure, let's pray. And if they're like, well, no, I just want you to pray. It's like, no, bro, like, you can, like, I'll pray with you.
Yeah.
I don't need to pray for you in the sense of instead of you.
Yeah. So if there was a world, and that's kind of what's happening, like when you and I pray together, and the beauty of that is kind of bringing our agreement together. Let's go to Jesus together.
Exactly.
And there seems to be, with praying to saints, that's not really happening. It's like, hey, would you talk to the guy for me?
Exactly. Like, if you were going through something crazy and you sent a text to 20 friends saying, would you pray for me? You're not going to not pray yourself.
I'm actually saying, would you pray with me?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm already. This
is what I've been praying about, and I'm going to keep praying. Will you pray with me?
Yeah.
As opposed to going like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'll pick on our friend Dan, because he's the most spiritual person anyone's ever met. Dan Lamus.
We get him in. We need to get him in the back.
We do. Yeah. It would never like. I think it would be really weird for me to go, oh man, I got this major thing coming up. Dan, can you pray about this?
And I'm not.
And then just go, but I'm good. Like, Dan's got it covered, right? So yeah, I think that, like, pray with, as opposed to just purely pray for or pray instead of.
Yeah.
And again, maybe, I mean, I know people who pray to saints also pray to Jesus, but it seems like when they're leaning in, particularly like when you get into the patron saint stuff, like, this is the guy who helps you find stuff, or this is the guy who helps whatever.
This is superstitious.
Well, and it does seem like I mean, the logic behind that is that's something they've got a soft spot in their heart about.
They've got a grace for it or something.
Well, or like, just like if you had a go back to cancer. If you were going through a cancer issue and you had a friend who'd walked through that, you might ask them to pray for it because you know they get it. They like, there's sort of that idea, right? They empathize. They have a soft spot in their heart for people who are going through that or whatever. But the idea that, I'm delegating this to you because you care about it more than, like, it starts sort of what this guy was saying, like, Jesus doesn't really want to pay attention to you, but if his mother will harass you enough, he was like, well, Jesus doesn't really care about your cancer, but he cares about, Saint Jim, and Jim cares about cancer, so I got to go through him, right? Like, that intermediary thing, I think is toxic.
Yeah. So I'm going to hard sweep the guy's video and his whole take.
Yep.
Hard sweep, soft sweep on praying to saints as a general thing. I just think, I think it's dumb.
Yeah, I think it's fraught with dangers.
It's just not the best option available to you.
And I think it's unnecessary, but I don't think it's idolatrous or innately evil, and certainly nothing. If I was ever going to argue with my Catholic friends about theology, that's not the one I would feel like we got to solve this.
Where would you start? Where would you start with taking them to task, or like where's the biggest hang up?
Oh man. The Pope and Mary are probably the two biggest things for me.
Yeah.
Like, praying to saints, kind of neither here nor there. Transubstantiation, I don't have a massive issue with it. I feel like the mechanics are a little bit overworked, but the end result. But yeah, I think some of the level of exaltation of Mary that was, I think, mostly an overreaction to the Protestant Reformation, and then just the notion that the church is embodied in one dude.
Yeah.
Those are probably the big ones for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the crazy thing with Catholic, like being a Protestant is like you have like what I'm trying to think of a good, like you have The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Not even all the Chronicles of Narnia, just The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? And trying to get your head around that. And then being Catholic is like having the entire corpus of Tolkien writings.
Yeah, and
so there's
C.S.
like,
Lewis. And,
right, you got like the Silmarillion, and you like it's not just the Lord of the Rings, not just the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. It's like all, and it's just so rich and so thick and so dense and so complicated that it's one of those like, yeah, give me another 10 years and I might have other things that I think are harder to get your head around.
That might be part of the problem, though, is that it's like it's just so. Well, it's so like it's so much and so old and so detached from like just ground level. Like how does this like faith in Jesus actually intersect with my real life?
Entire mental frameworks that we have. I'm reading a book right now by my friend David Dean called Tyranny of the Banal, and one of the things he talks about is that Catholic moral teaching is based on like mental categories and language that we don't even have anymore. And so it's one of those like people basically try to argue for it using the broader frameworks and worldviews of like a post-Enlightenment modernity. And it's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, no, it's not. It's like trying to explain to someone, you know, how hockey works if you're on a basketball court.
Right.
Like push your skates into the ice. Like there's no ice. What are you talking about? Right.
Yeah.
So I always say Catholics need to have a good yard sale though. There's just declutter just a little
purge a little bit.
Yeah.
I agree. And maybe the Protestants could pick up some of that stuff
100%.
Maybe not the stuff they get rid of, but maybe the stuff they keep is worth looking at.
The more time I've spent with Catholics, the more in my theology, more Wesleyan I have become. And I don't mean that as a reaction, but there's a more generic, watered down evangelicalism that has pulled me back from into something a little richer, something with a little more mystery, something with a little more depth.
I agree with that.
I'm grateful for that.
So one more segment we want to do before we get into our conversation with Justin. It is.
It would behoove you.
It would behoove you.
Let's behoove.
Well, it would behoove us to not do this, what we're about to do, actually. So that's the first thing. I've been in ministry for 20 years. I've been a senior pastor for 13 years. I have never not regretted talking about politics.
Yep.
It's like it doesn't age well.
Yeah, there's never been a moment where I've spoken about politics and then later not spoken about politics and then later went, I should have said something.
Like when elections happen and stuff. However, the reason I have and the reason I want to briefly today is I think from a pastoral standpoint, this is where people are currently at. Yep. And we have a lot of people like at King's Church or, you know, if you're a part of the dozens that go to another church, you are navigating this. We have an election coming up, a week from now.
If you live in Canada, we have an election coming up soon. And if you live in the States, you always have an election. You are always in an election season.
You know, so this is where people are at. And I just think like, you know, to completely, you know, I know this is a loaded word with some history here in the back corner, but to abdicate our voice pastorally on these times is pastoral malpractice. And so I just thought, hey, let's take 10 minutes and I'm not going to tell you how to vote necessarily, but maybe give some advice or pointers as to like how should one be processing this federal election we've got coming up. We got Mark Carney, who's the leader of the Liberals and who is our current prime minister, was not elected as prime minister, but he got the job in the interim. Yep. And we've got Pierre Poilievre running for the Conservatives. And then you got the other parties.
Yeah.
So
Jagmeet Singh for the NDP. I think there's 2 people for the Green Party.
We need more nicknames. We need Trump to just do us a favor and give us some.
I'm good on Trump's favors, actually. I'd be happy if he just stopped thinking about us.
His nicknames are the best. So how are you? And again, like I know the reality is, and just to give full disclosure to the listeners, AJ and I went back and forth on, do we bring admittedly, AJ and I are both fairly centrist on this, both personally and pastorally. And you, a little bit more than me, are willing to just like stay out of it entirely.
I'm centrist with the side of ambivalence.
And I'm a centrist with a side of aggressiveness. Yeah. But both of us aren't super... Which is pretty much us.
Which probably says as much about our temperaments as it does about our politics.
Absolutely. Yeah. But we don't necessarily represent the scope of people who would be in church. We thought about, hey, let's bring in somebody who leans left. Let's bring in Anthony. And let's have it out. But we thought, you know what, we got an interview with Justin to get to. So let's do our best to at least try to coach the believer in like how should you think about this election? What are you thinking? What would what would it behoove someone as they process their vote? What would behoove them?
Let me give you a big picture thing, and then I think 3 kind of more concrete things. One, Christians, you've got to remember that this is not the kingdom.
Yes.
Canada is not the kingdom. There is no election in the kingdom, right? The kings don't get elected. Jesus is on the throne no matter what.
He took it.
Right. It's his. Yep. It's never, and it's whatever it is temporary. I mean, it's very temporary. I couldn't tell you the last time a government in Canada was in power for more than 10 or 12 years or so. Yeah. I think Chrétien might have been 12. I don't remember.
Well, I think Justin.
Well, yeah, he's 9.5. Yeah.
It was a long run. I was going to say it was a good run. It wasn't. Well, yeah, it was a long run.
It was a good run in terms of duration.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Justin,
I think there is a real danger of what is a kind of a soft idolatry of putting too much confidence in or too much faith in or investing too much emotionally in politics.
Sometimes it's more than soft.
Yes.
Idolatry.
Yes.
Honestly. Some of the posts I've seen, like our people posts, I'm like, what are you like? This is not in the Bible.
There's no one we could elect in this election that would bring the kingdom of God. And there is no one we could elect in this election that will stop the coming of the kingdom. Jesus is going to do what he's going to do. I guarantee you we will not elect the worst person who's ever been over a country in the history of the world.
Yeah, that's
Mao is not in the running. Stalin is not on any of the ballots.
I did see Kim Jong's making a play.
Well, the dear leader. No.
Supreme leader.
So just like keep it in perspective.
Yes. Pump the brakes.
And I don't even mean I'm not talking about politically realistic perspective. I'm talking about theological perspective, right? If the early church thrived under the Roman Empire, we're going to be fine. It might be uncomfortable, but we're going to be fine. And so don't lose sleep over it. Don't stress out about it. That's kind of the big picture thing. But then I would throw 3 things at you that I would, more in the kind of classic behoove you, here's some advice. First would just be to be aware of tribalism.
Yeah.
Just because someone agrees with you on 2 things doesn't mean they're right on 10 things. And you don't have to think they're right about everything. You don't have to pick a side. You really don't. You do have to, if you're going to vote, which, some people will hate that I say this. Biblically speaking, I don't think you have to vote, but it's a good idea to. If you're going to vote, you have to pick who you're going to vote for, but you don't have to go, and now I agree with everything that person says and everything they think. Totally. No. I think there's, and I'm not even won't even get into whether I think Christians should be members of political parties, official members, but certainly we should not be hook, line, and sinker on anything. We shouldn't be just bought in. Everything that comes from the right is me, or everything that comes from the left is me. Everything just get out.
If you fit too neat and tidy into that, there's a problem.
That's a problem. Because if you look at what the kingdom values, it is not left or right.
It's not at all.
No, it's awkwardly both, and it's not even in the middle.
Yes.
The kingdom is far left on some stuff, and the kingdom is far right on some stuff, and the kingdom it's messy. And if you come to your theology with a political framework and try to wedge Jesus into it, to what you were saying earlier about knowing Jesus for who he is, you'll never know Jesus for who he is because he does not fit those categories. So you will have to denude him of things, like take stuff away from him to make him fit that category. And then you're going to have to add stuff to him. And you're just going to wind up with, whoever your party leader is, but with a toga and a blue sash, right? Yep. And it's not going to be Jesus. So beware of tribalism. Beware of thinking someone's wrong about everything because you think they're wrong about some stuff, or they're associated with a group you think is wrong about some stuff. Beware of kind of mindfully or mindlessly, either one, like intentionally or unintentionally backing something just because it's what your team is doing.
Right.
Like, oh, our guys say this. Oh, okay, that's what I think too. So
have some nuance.
Totally. Don't just be like, this is my tribe and I'm ride or die with this political tribe. I think like super practical. Go to like Wikipedia and brush up on logical fallacies. There are so many arguments made. The debates are coming up. There's so many arguments made that just don't hold up to reason.
Right.
And so if you're not even familiar with the concept of logical fallacies, you should probably literally just go brush up on that stuff now. But
if one didn't know what that was,
so
break it down.
In rhetoric, in reason, like the actual like art of reasoning, of using your
asking for a friend.
Yeah, using your reason. There are these things called logical fallacies, which are ways people position arguments that don't actually work. I don't mean they don't convince. I mean they don't hold up. They're 2 + 2 = 5 kind of thing. So I'll give you some examples. One's called the argument from incredulity, which just means I can't imagine that's true, so it must not be true.
Right.
So there's some fact or statistic or whatever else. I mean, again, statistics can be twisted. I get that. But that someone goes, well, I can't imagine that would be the case. So therefore, well, that's not an argument. Right, that's a logical fallacy. There's the definist fallacy, which is where you just use loaded terms. Like you go, I'm gonna take this thing that maybe most people would agree on, but then I'm gonna say it means something way more than what everyone would agree on, and therefore, you have to agree with me. There's something called a false dilemma. That's one we see in politics all the time, which is the idea it has to be A or B. Right? There's no nuance, right? There's no C, there's no D, it's actually half A and a quarter of B and then a third C. And it's kind of, you're for us or against us, you're in or you're out, begging the question. That's where the conclusion is the argument. So, this is wonderful. And we know it's wonderful because it's this, and this is wonderful. Like that's not, hasty generalizations. That's where you take a broad conclusion from a very small, unrepresentative sample. So, whatever you go, this is where I would argue a lot of racism comes from. I know 2 or 3 people from this cultural ethnic background and they were this way. And so everyone from there is that way. Right. Yep. It's like, no, you met the idiots of that ethnicity, and there's idiots in every ethnicity, right? That kind of thing. Argument from anecdote, that you will hear a ton in politics.
Yes.
I was talking to someone and they said this. Well, so one person out of millions, right?
Or just because something rhymes doesn't mean, like, that's a preacher hack too.
Totally.
It's like, just because you made a catchy, rhymey statement doesn't mean it has any punch.
Yeah. Magical thinking, that's another one. It's a false assertion of causal relationships. So like, the government did this and then this happened. Well, that doesn't mean that A caused B, right? Like you got to dig a little deeper. Or then the other one I'll mention real quickly, and then I'll talk about this last thing and kick it over to you, Brent, is ad hominem attacks, as in going against the person. So the idea that if the person, and this is where I think we've lost a lot of our traction in public discourse, is if I disagree with you, you are bad. And if you are bad, then anything you say is untrue.
Yes.
And so that's where you get the like politician A holds position A. Well, if you disagree with position A, now you have to disagree with them on everything because they're a terrible person. And you'll get this, in our, I mean, again, let's be honest, this is realistically between the liberals and conservatives. Carney thinks this, and this, so he's wrong about everything. Or Polyev thinks this, and this, so he's wrong about everything. Or I just don't like the way Polyev does this, so he's wrong about everything. Or Carney is associated with some other thing, so he's got like, no, what's the actual argument? What's the actual statement being made? So brush up on those logical fallacies. Literally, just Google it. There's pages and pages. It's ancient, like literally ancient Greek stuff is where this started. And then the other thing I would just say is beware of demonizing.
Yes.
There's this quote, if I knew who it was from, I'd attribute it to him, but it said, never attribute to maliciousness what can adequately be explained through incompetence. Like some people aren't evil, they're just stupid.
Yeah.
Some people, they don't mean to cause the damage they caused.
I feel like that, honestly, like, cause I've heard people say this about Justin Trudeau, that he's evil. I actually don't think I just don't think he's smart.
Yeah.
Like I
Totally.
really just think he's not smart.
I don't think most politicians that we will encounter in Canada, I can't speak for some, military despot in some banana republic somewhere, but I don't think most of them are like Machiavellian villains.
Yeah.
I think they generally are well-intentioned, and I mean this on both sides, well-intentioned, but misguided with a healthy dose of ego.
Yeah, like a bit narcissistic.
Yeah, like I don't think any
sure.
of them are super humble and they're just all about the self-sacrifice.
Well,
but I do think most of them are going, even if it's an ego thing, I want to be the guy that made the country better.
Sure.
Like, but I think that's what most of them are shooting for. So you don't have to go like, this person is just the devil incarnate. It's like, this person is wrong, but that doesn't mean they're evil.
Yeah, I think it's important for people. I did a message on this actually in the Revelation series, but when Revelation gets into like the beast and the dragon and like Babylon, and these are pictures of layers of powers. And I think a lot of the time, to your demonization point, the enemy wants us to like mix up who our enemy is.
Yes.
And like, aim it at flesh and blood. And like even this week have seen Christians posting things or commenting on social media about like so and so is part of the globalist movement to try to bring an antichrist end to the nation, and we're going to lose our nation. And like you are attributing to a human being, well, one, probably a level of power and intelligence they don't possess.
Yes.
Like you're giving like the conspiracists give the government too much credit at time. Like,
totally.
like it's actually scarier than you think.
Yeah.
They don't have a good plan. Like there's way more chaos.
It is so complicated. Like the notion, I think this is honestly people who've never led an organization of any scale.
Yes.
They imagine a level of control.
Yeah, like you're pulling levers
that a leader has. That is
it's just not there.
I've never led anything massive. I've led some things that are big-ish. And it's like, dude, the number of things that you just have to go, I just don't know what's going on there. I trust the person who's in charge of the person who's in charge of the person who's in charge of the person who's probably hopefully taking care of it.
Yeah.
And I think government is just way too complicated for any 1 or 2 or 20 people to fully control it.
So my point on that though is there is an insidious malevolent power behind the scenes that is trying to destroy human beings.
Yeah.
But it's not people,
Totally.
and maybe there's one person, maybe Klaus Schwab really is like talking to Satan, and like they're
Is he the contact lens guy?
Klaus Schwab? No, he's the like the Davos World Economic Forum.
Yeah, but I mean, how did he get there?
You want some tinfoil? So no, he does look like Darth Vader. Like he's got this German accent. I mean, he does look like a super villain.
That's great.
But like, I think that's one of the right wing criticisms and conspiracies of Mark Carney is he's part of the Davos crew, and there's people out there that would say there's a globalist agenda, and yeah, there is, but it's satanic.
Yeah,
it's demonic, and I think you're giving human beings too much credit in the planning and the orchestration of that. It's not to say that the devil's not using them.
Sure.
Right. And I think this is where Christians have to use wisdom and discretion on who they vote for, is like, and that's really where it comes down to me on how I'm voting, is like, neither of these horses do I really want to ride. Which one do I think is less controlled by Satan?
I mean, if I'm being blunt, I usually say, plug your nose and vote.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely worry about anyone who's enthusiastic.
Oh, totally.
Like it just seems like a I don't know. It's misplaced. It's misguided to have that much hope.
You're going to be disappointed.
Totally.
Or if you're not, you should be, in that this is not the kingdom of God.
Right. You said before about people worrying that the country's going to end. back to the perspective thing. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually in God's plan for
The Lord's going
Canada
to roll
to
this all up.
So yeah.
Totally.
And then the other thing I would say on this whole demonizing thing, your highest calling in life as a believer, like look at who all the candidates are in your riding, all the candidates in your country. Your highest calling towards all of them is not to beat them, it's to win them.
Say it again. Hold on.
Your high, like, do this as a thought exercise. Think through the candidates you are the most upset about the thought of them getting or staying in, and know that the primary thing, your primary calling, your primary agenda is not to defeat them, it is to win them.
Yes.
When you stand before the pearly gates, God is not going to go,
how did you vote?
right, how come you didn't do enough to make sure they didn't get elected?
Yep.
He's going to say, what did you do to share the gospel with them? There's a great John Wesley quote I want to throw in here real quick, and then we'll get your thoughts, Brent. But this was one of Wesley's journal entries from a day when there was an election coming up. He said, I met those of our society, that would be like his group of Methodists, who had votes in the ensuing election, and I advised them, 1, to vote without fee or reward for the person they judged most worthy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like vote for whoever you think will be best. Do that. Number 2, to speak no evil of the person they voted against.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, your job is to win them, not to defeat. Like, how in the world are you going to go online and say candidate whatever, particularly in your own riding, candidate whoever is the devil incarnate and they're going to ruin the whole world?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you get a chance to share Jesus with them. Yeah. How's that going to go?
Yeah.
Like, speak no evil of the person they voted against. And 3, to take care that their spirits were not sharpened against those that voted on the other side.
Ooh.
You are going to be part of a church with people who vote differently than you. You are going to spend eternity trapped in heaven with people who voted differently than you.
Yeah.
Man, why are you making that more awkward than it needs to be for the sake of a country? Not the kingdom, just a country.
Yeah. I mean, that said, I do want this country to flourish.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and I will vote accordingly.
Yes. But at what expense? That's my question.
Yeah, I just think we have to keep things in their rightful place.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think some of the rhetoric, particularly in the Christian right, maybe my algorithms don't show me the Christian left as much.
Yeah.
But, some of the rhetoric is like, this is the end of the world. Like, what do we have if Canada elects the Liberals again? Yeah. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't, and I'll share my opinion here. Like, I don't think that this nation is the ultimate goal of like God's will and plan on the earth. I think he does have plans for Canada. I think there's some prophetic words about Canada that have yet to come to pass. Like Canada being, something under the healing of all nations, that God's going to use us. And I think there's work yet to be done for this nation. So I'm not saying,
but even then, it's not going to be done.
Hell with Canada.
It's not going to be done through the government.
Yes, but the nation does have to exist for
the nation will. This is where I think too. When we read the Bible and we hear about nations, we fast forward to the modern notion of the nation state.
Yes,
as opposed to people groups.
Yes,
right. So like, there's going to be whatever God's going to do in New Brunswick. He's going to do in New Brunswick, whether it's still called New Brunswick or not.
Yes.
Whether it's like
with those people,
with the people that are there,
yeah.
right?
I do think we give, especially as kingdom people, give a little bit too much credence to, the borders and the flags and the colors.
It's
and
all so recent.
It is, and it's also what's the word? Temporary.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's not even that it's not going to last. It's that it's only been here for 20 minutes.
We talked about the Romans. Was it in this one earlier? It was last week?
Last episode, last week. Yeah, last week. Definitely wasn't earlier today. It was last week for sure.
We talked about ancient, like we talked about the Romans, right? And it's like, I bet you there was some hard fought, political battles within the Roman Empire that literally there's no record of.
Well, and when you talk, there's a great example. If you talk about God's people under the Roman Empire,
right,
pre-Jesus, like what country did the Hebrews live in? Rome. Like that was the nation state. I mean, empire.
And then they lived in different regions.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were exiled. And they were like,
And Paul particularly, but you don't get very much from Jesus, Paul, Peter, any of the, like, it doesn't really speak to the political climate of the day other than we are under the thumb of an empire and we are creating an uprising of the kingdom. Like that's really it.
And that's what, when I this always, again, when I look at Jesus, his response to politics always just seems to be,
give to Caesar what is Caesar's.
Yeah, like I'm just doing bigger stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like when
that's it.
Like it just not I don't think he didn't care about people suffering under Roman rule. Yeah. But it just seemed like he was going like, guys, this is not actually the thing.
What I'm doing is way bigger. And so it's like you're getting hung up on, lesser matters. And I think that would be my biggest advice is just like putting this whole thing in its rightful place. And like it's a deal, but it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of the kingdom. And I refuse to get caught in this, like with some of the rhetoric and some of the like, just, we're going to lose our nation and, Christians got to stand up. And like, it's like, we do got to stand up, but not like that.
The flip side of the demonizing thing too is the lionizing, the, like you make saints, your hope is your side, right? And it's one of those like, it's uncharitable to view the opposing side as poorly as some people do.
Yeah.
And it's idolatrous to view your side as highly as some people
do.
So you gotta there's gotta be some stratification there because you're gonna have to pick. But like these are people made in the image of God that Jesus died for, and most of them are at least well-intentioned, well-intentioned, incompetent egomaniacs, but still well-intentioned, right? And do you know who these guys over here? They're well-intentioned, incompetent egomaniacs who you agree with a little bit more.
So here's my couple pieces of advice.
Not saying all politicians are egomaniacs, but I do think it averages that.
So number one is just like politicians don't hold my hope.
No.
And they don't have my trust.
Yes.
Like both those things. Totally. I don't trust any of them. And it's not because like I think they're bad people, it's because I think they're people.
Yeah.
And that is not good enough for me to hang my hope of my future on.
Yeah.
So we're starting in a broken system with broken people, and I am not going to allow my heart and my hope to place on them more than what should be placed on them.
And if you were in that role, you would feel the same way.
Absolutely. Oh, I feel that way even just in our little church.
Totally.
Like it's like there's sometimes people come to me and I'm like, I'm just a guy.
Yes.
I love Jesus. He's called me. I'll do my best to serve you, but like I'm not the savior.
We talk about that. I can't remember if it's in the conversation with Justin that's coming up or in the conversation with John last week about that whole like trusting your kids and trusting like with technology and access to the internet. I was like, don't you trust? I was like, no, I don't trust them. I don't trust me. I don't trust anybody. Yeah. Like, have you met people? We're the worst.
Yeah. So that's a huge one. It's just like they don't have my hope and they don't have my trust.
That's awesome. That's good.
And I think you're wise to hold that out here like that. I would say, and you touched on most of the things I wanted to touch on anyway, so I'll just encapsulate a couple of values. In everything, test the spirits.
Yes.
Just like specifically in and around you. Like the Bible tells us like the fruit of the Spirit's evident. Faithfulness, gentleness, love, joy, peace, self-control. If you're getting caught up in, feelings or conversations or Facebook chats that are they're the antithesis of that.
Is this making me more loving? Is this making me more joyful? Is this making me more peaceful?
You are probably being manipulated or maneuvered by some foul spirit.
Yeah.
And so just like be very alert as a Christian, even as you dive into you plug your nose and you dive into this, be very alert of how you're being moved and what is moving you. And if it's not producing love, joy, gentleness, patience, kindness, self-control, the fruit of the Spirit, you should be very aware of, the spirits that are behind these things. So that'd be my big advice. And then I just would dive into the pros and cons. I'll say this. I'll say two unpopular things. I'm going to tick off the left and the right.
Do it.
we'll start with ticking
Those
off.
are the two groups I like the least.
We'll tick off the right. I actually don't mind Mark Carney. Like he's a breath of fresh air from Trudeau. I'm gonna say.
I would,
like,
yeah.
Just like
if I had to pick between those two, it would not be a hard choice.
Like I've wanted to dislike him more than I have. Yeah. I will say, like, and he's clearly very intelligent.
Yep.
Like which is a huge upgrade from the drama teacher. Like, this guy clearly is smart, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
You know, like he's like Ivy League educated. You know, he ran the Bank of Britain, I think. Like
Bank of Canada and Bank of Britain.
Like, dude, that's big league freaking stuff. Like, so he at least has some like high level
some credentials.
Intelligence. So I appreciate that. He seems like a fairly likable dude. It's
funny you talk about him being likable. Like, one of the things, just full disclosure, it's not the top of my list, but one of the things when I vote, I'm always asking myself is like, how annoying will it be to hear this guy talk for the next 3 to 5 years?
He's not too bad.
No, dude, did you see him?
He's less annoying than Polyev, honestly.
Yeah, no. Did you see him on the Daily Show?
No.
He was on.
It was a while back though. Yeah.
Right before he announced. But it was like,
he was
just like
decent.
One of those people you're like, oh, I can see why someone would have him talk.
Yeah, like I'd rather have Carney sitting here in the back corner with us than Polyev from a conversation standpoint.
From a ratings perspective, let's get them both in here.
Mr. Carney or Mr. Polyev, if you have this is an open invitation.
If it turns out you are one of the dozens.
Yeah. So that'll tick off the right a little bit. That I actually don't think he's that bad. However,
I think they are overplaying how different he is from a policy perspective.
Yes.
Than JT.
Yes.
But I do think he's...
Well, therein lies the rub.
Yeah.
So,
but I do think he's more intelligent than JT.
And again, I always regret doing this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to vote conservative this time around. Here's my reasons, and again, like, I'm not going to villainize you. So please don't villainize me.
Yeah.
For having this take. And again, my hope is not in this. So take it with a grain of salt and for what it's worth. But as I, lay it all out and try to weigh the pros and the cons, to me, the big stuff about that's informing my vote is ultimately it's ideologies that are guiding, Carney and the Liberals. I fundamentally disagree with a lot of them. More of them than I disagree. I have some of my disagreements with the conservatives too. There's just more. There's more boxes I can check with the conservatives from a moral, an ideological, and even what I think seems like common sense as far as economics goes. Like, the reality is, like, this guy's been in Club Trudeau for the last handful of years anyway. We're not in a great position from a cost of living, economics. Like, it's just not, it's the definition of insanity to do the same thing again and expect different results. Totally. So even just for that, like, give the blue team a try is kind of where I'm at on this. I don't agree with the ideas that drive the decisions behind the Liberals.
I think a
lot of them anyway.
I think the great strength of democracy is mediocrity.
Yeah.
Like that, it's just things are just fine.
C.S.
Like
Lewis,
they never go too hard one side or the other.
C.S. Lewis said, of all of the flawed human systems, it's the best of the worst.
It's the worst. What is it? It's the worst system of governments except every other one we've tried.
Yes, exactly.
And what was it? Was it who was it? Yogi Bear or something like that said that politicians are like underwear; they should be changed often for the same reason.
Yeah.
And genuinely, I do think there's something to be said for any one party being in power for too long. Things just drift off too far in a given direction.
Yeah. So that's a big piece. And then what maybe someone's asking, like, what are the ideologies that you have an issue with? Obviously, around like gender, around like climate, all that kind of stuff. Like, I just think they've driven way too far down the trail of some of that stuff to inform policy that touches on economics that hurts everybody. I don't agree with a lot of it, a lot of that agenda. I just I can't really sign off on it. So.
I think both sides are pretty ideological.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which is I again, how I'm not even sure how I would weigh like number of things or how important the things are that I agree or disagree with. But to me, that's where I come back to that whole, like, if what I'm shooting for, if my optimistic view is mediocrity, then any ideology that's been in the driver's seat for too long needs to be supplanted by another. Like, we're swerving down the road.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want us to average out on the yellow line.
We've been way left for a while.
Yeah.
And it does seem like there needs to be kind of brought back to center a little bit. Like the stuff that the conservatives are campaigning on was not far right stuff, even though that's the vernacular.
Dude, it's so funny when I've lived in the States a few times and they'll have lots of family down there and they'll ask like what the politics is in Canada.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, so you know how there's the Democrats? I go, okay. Like just one notch right of that is our conservative party.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you've got your Democrat, or then you've got your, we've got our Liberal Party over here. And then like way off in left field, you have your NDP.
The closest thing we have to Republicans are Canadian right-wing Christians.
Yeah.
That's like the closest thing
like
that we've got
the People's Party, whatever, that dude.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you've got like, they have no equivalent to the Bloc. Like that's like, imagine Texas had a party whose whole thing was, we would like to help run the country because we would like to leave the country.
Yeah, exactly.
It is goofy, man.
It is. So exercise your right. I would go out and vote. Like just keep it in its right place.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Well, they say there's a couple of things you should never talk about are religion and politics. And of course, we're always going to talk about religion. And today we talked about politics. But probably the other thing that's the most dicey is sex.
Yeah. So why not?
Let's turn our attention to that. Reminder, if you have kids who are listening who were too young to attend XY, you might be a great time to change the channel.
This episode, we talked about praying to saints.
Yeah.
We ticking off the Catholic Church. We're ticking off the left and the right.
There we go.
For the election. And now let's talk about sex.
Yeah.
This is actually a great conversation.
It is a wonderful conversation.
And it's not just for dudes.
No.
The lady dozens will appreciate some of this as well. So big thanks to Justin Kendrick. It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
You want to do the time machine? So you guys haven't met Justin yet, and I'm gonna do a proper intro in our last session. He's gonna be closing our conference here in the final gathering. But this is a real honor to have Justin Kendrick, not just at the XY conference, but here in the back corner.
The back corner.
Did you ever think You've arrived.
It's an honor to be here.
You're in the back corner podcast.
I'm thrilled.
I gave you
We'll ask you again at the end if you still feel like it was an honor.
I gave you no heads up on what to expect other than we're going to talk about sexuality and stuff, but
yeah, nothing except, hey, we're talking about sex on a stage. Yeah, it's great.
Why not? You're up for it though.
I love it.
You're here.
It's great.
Yeah. But we tend to on our podcast we do a lot of just stuff that doesn't matter at all, but we like to rank things. And so we do top fours. It used to be called Mount Rushmore. Now it's called Mountainous Top Four because we're trying to keep our nation strong and free.
We're not importing our giant monuments from the States right now due to tariffs. It's good.
Yeah. So I thought though
we don't have that kind of budget.
What we should do is I was thinking about this. All three of us, if you could go back in a Wayback Machine to like the early 2000s, late 90s, all three of us were leading worship. We were worship leaders.
Indeed. Okay. Yeah.
So top 4 90s to early 2000s worship songs that if we were to find you leading worship, this is probably what you're going to do.
Yeah. This would be your jam. Yeah. I gotta go better as one day, Matt Redman.
All right.
A, I love Matt Redman, and B, anything you can play with an open E voicing, I'm all over.
There you go.
That's my favorite thing. I'm gonna go good old Every Move I Make.
Oh yeah.
Four chords in the truth, baby. And it had a little bounce to it. Something I enjoyed that. On a more serious front, I got to go with "Give Us Clean Hands." Classic. That was what I called when I was a worship leader an insta worship song. If things weren't going great, you just shift into that.
Switch over.
The hands go up, everyone's with you. And then for a little, I always bring my regional flavor to these lists. I'm going to go Romans 16:19.
Oh, that's a regional deep cut.
Any PR people in the house? There we go.
Present Reality was a worship band up in these parts that did great things, actually.
They were the worship band.
They were.
Up in this
part.
part. You weren't actually legally. There was a season from about 93 till about 2001 where actually it was not legal to worship Jesus in Atlantic, Canada. Present Reality was not present.
Yeah, Romans 16:19 was one of their camp songs.
Yeah,
and it goes like this.
Lots of jumping in
Romans 16:19
says.
I've heard it. Yeah.
Be excellent.
Yeah.
And what is good?
Yeah.
Anyway,
you got. Where are you going? Top four.
Yep. I would say, did you feel the mountains tremble?
Yes.
I remember when I first heard that song, Delirious,
so
it was like,
so good.
It was one of those ones that was definitely, it was so different. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you weren't singing Jesus, Jesus, I love you. It was just totally different.
that was their song, I Could Sing Of Your Love Forever.
They did have that one.
later on
Yeah,
the
that one
album.
was, yeah, it's true. Okay, so this one's a little older. Jesus, Lover of My Soul.
Yeah.
That one, like, this is probably mid-90s, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But that one was like 4 chords. You could get through the whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Lover
Let's see.
of my soul.
Blessed Be Your Name.
Yeah.
Blessed Be Your Name. You can do at 80 BPM or 160
Yes.
BPM.
It's gonna work.
You can crank it. Yeah. So we did a lot of Blessed Be Your Name.
It still holds up too.
I know.
I was
Yeah.
in a gathering.
You can
not
drop
long
it in.
ago, and we
Yep.
did it, and it's
Yep.
like, yep.
Yep. One more. All right. I would say, I mean, you know, well, God of the City. Do you remember that song?
Yes.
You're the God of the city. Yeah.
Yeah.
That gets on the list. I know it wasn't quite as
like
known,
that. I like
but when Chris Tomlin did it, it kind of got a little bit more known. But yeah, those are 4.
I got
4
a
to
couple
come to mind.
deep cuts. I had one. We had an overlap. Did you feel the mountains tremble? For sure.
Yeah.
Ancient of Days.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Blessing and honor.
Oh yeah.
Had a whole bop.
Ron. Is that Ron Canoli?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Well, everybody did it.
I heard the Present Reality version, so.
Yep.
Shout to the Lord.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Shout to the North.
Ooh.
So that was another Delirious song.
Robin Mark. No, it was Robin
was
Mark.
it?
And then Shout to the North and the South.
That was like the
kind of point.
the minstrel era of worship
yeah,
music. You
you're
just picture
right.
that with a loop.
Yeah. With
You're
honorable
right.
mention to Days of Elijah.
Oh yeah. So that one gets weird. So I get into verse 6. It's like
These are the
Jedediah. It's
days
like wait.
I used to talk about how much that song annoyed me, and my lead pastor at the time, shout out Peter if you're out there, I saw you around earlier. He was at a conference where Robin Mark was, and he walks up to him with his phone, and he goes, "Hey, my worship leader hates that song, Days of Elijah. Anything you want to say?" So I actually have somewhere on my phone this old grainy, like from years ago, Robin Mark being like, "I do know what your problem is with my song."
So I played guitar for Robin Mark at a conference in Orlando.
And that's the difference between you and I.
And but in rehearsal, we asked him, like, what does Days of Elijah mean? And he goes, "It means I'll never have to work another day in my life."
That's perfect.
There you go.
Touche.
There you go.
Yeah. So, sex. Do you like it?
I'm gonna go.
We're not doing top 4 for that. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no,
all right.
no.
All right. Okay.
That's why. I
don't know where the list begins. Where it ends.
That's why I went worship songs. I was
got
like,
it,
what
got
can
it.
I do? Mountainous
Yeah.
top 4
Got it. Yep.
sex edition.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just zagged. I went,
that's a good zag.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm pro.
In all, yeah, I think we're all in favor.
vote yes.
Yep.
Yes.
In all seriousness, though, I wanted to have this discussion because, well, obviously, like this is a men's conference. Every one of us have like.
Just quick. All 3 of our sons, I think, are in the room. So just
Yeah.
shout out if you see 3 teenagers.
I feel like my son bailed
Hiding
on
their
this
head in
one.
shame.
Squirming
Yeah.
hard
Oh, he's here.
this
All right.
whole time.
All right.
Like,
Yeah.
that's our boys.
Yeah.
If you see 3 guys get up and walk out, they love Jesus. They just don't want to be here for this.
It is such a huge part of masculinity, such a huge part of life, and it's a struggle at times. It can cause shame and bondage. It can also be so satisfying. It's just this huge, overarching, like actual discipleship issue.
Yes.
And the reason I thought to have you here, I want to give a little backstory.
Yeah.
We connected about a year ago at a pastor's gathering, and it was really cool when you were outlining some of your discipleship, like first steps, like new believer.
Yep.
What do I do to follow Jesus? And one of the first prescriptions, like you guys in your church do, like just full stop.
Yep.
Practice sexual purity.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so, aggressive, because I'm thinking like, we have all these like first generation Christians, people living with their girlfriend, whatever, like they weren't even discipled in that, and you guys like see this as such a paramount issue that you highlight that as like one of your first steps in following Jesus. Unpack kind of what went into that, why for you this is such a critical issue.
Yeah, I think it's like the worst kept secret, right? In Christendom right now. I think the stats are terrible. It's like 96% of men looked at porn in the last 30 days, across the Western world. And so like, pornography, any type of sexual expression outside of a man and a woman in marriage is just common, right? And I think for Christians, it's the thing that a lot of guys are just not talking about. They're saying, hey, I want to follow Jesus. Hey, I want to, be a leader. Hey, I want to have a blessed family. Hey, I want to be a man of confidence. And all those things are important. But what's often not being dealt with or discussed is, hey, all of my confidence and joy and peace are being ripped out from my soul because of a secret sexual problem that I'm just not being honest with anybody about. And so I think for a lot of men, we go on this long discipleship journey. We try 1,000 things, but a sexual brokenness lives in the background. And because it's not dealt with, there's a stunting of spiritual growth that is unavoidable. And so, you can't be full of faith, full of joy, full of peace, full of life, and full of sexual sin, and at the same time, you just can't. It will rob you.
Short circuits the whole.
Yeah, it will rob you. And so I think for a lot of guys, it's like, we're blaming 10 other things, but it's like, actually the root is the secret sexual sin.
Is that because, you read the New Testament, even you read Acts, and it does seem like, when they were given the, remember when the Gentiles were starting to like, okay, we're gonna do this whole Christian thing, and and they're like, okay, we, the Jews who have a very clear moral code, we need to give them just some basic handles on what to do. And they basically said like, don't be sexually immoral, and don't worship idols, and you'll be fine.
You'll be good.
Yeah. So like, it seems like our sexuality is like, would you say it's disproportionately powerful?
Yeah, I mean, I think. Well, to get into the theology of it, right? We are wired. The whole sexual story of humanity is a mirror image of actually relationship with Jesus, true intimacy, the gospel. So this stuff is not. I think that's one of the big lies, to get into the lies of our culture, is that you can separate your spirituality from your sexuality.
Right.
Or you can, just do something physically that doesn't have emotional, psychological, mental, relational consequences.
Right.
And you can't, right? I think we have all the data, science and everything else that says, no, when you are looking at porn or when you're hooking up with somebody, your oxytocin, your norepinephrine, all these chemicals are firing. The entire thing is unto fusion, right? To be bound together. And so, I think
in every way, right?
In every way.
Psychologically,
whole life
emotionally,
commitment.
physiologically.
Yeah. And so whenever we try to differentiate or separate those things, it doesn't work. And it leads to, the bigger issue. I think it was Tim Keller who used the phrase, the fragmentation of personality, right? That when I try to just, hey, I do the porn thing when no one's looking at 2 a.m. and then I do the worship thing the next morning, and I wonder why there's a disconnect in my soul, you're fragmented. Like you have literally given away a piece of yourself without knowing it. And the Lord can restore that, He can heal that, but there needs to be first like a coming to terms with it.
Yeah. What are the most common, you mentioned like culture.
Yeah.
What are the most common maybe lies that come from a broken, like non-biblical paradigm about sex? What are the main ones people are dealing with?
It's funny. I think, and I'm a pastor been in ministry 20 years, pastoring the church I lead now for 13. And so I get to meet with a lot of men and just get one-on-one, face-to-face, life on life, experience with guys walking through all kinds of stuff as you guys do too. I think the first big lie that I hear a lot is this lie that, hey, this is a physical thing, it's recreational, and it's not something that has to necessarily impact my relationship with God. And that is just, again, both scientifically and in experience, that's not true. You can't separate these two. And so, okay, then there's the other extreme, which I think is probably just as common. So if sex is just one hobby or one appetite, the other extreme that I see a lot is, hey, romance and sexuality, they are my purpose. They're my fulfillment.
It's everything.
That like, yeah, if I don't have her, then I don't have life. You know, and so I need that girl or that relationship to actually inform who I am and complete me. And so when it falls apart or when the relationship breaks, I am now lost of an identity. You know, and so I think both lie. The first one, that sex is just physical, you know, will fragment the personality, break you up into little chunks, and you won't know why your heart doesn't feel anything anymore. And it's because a part of you went with that image, and a part of you went with that movie, and a part of you went with that relationship, and there's not much of you left. The other one, you'll just crush the people in your life. You know, if you make your wife or your girlfriend your life, they can't hold up under that weight. And so the weight of godhood will eventually disappoint you, and you'll be abandoned. You'll have that orphan mentality. Nobody loves me. How could they fail me? I think in contrast to those, right, you had just mentioned it, the gospel teaches sexuality as whole life commitment, right? And so if I'm going to give my body to you sexually, then I'm also going to give all my money to you. I'm going to give my future to you. I'm going to give my plans to you. And we have a name for that. That's called marriage, right? And so like that is the bucket that God says, hey, I designed sex to actually work really, really well and be really beautiful in that bucket of whole life commitment through marriage. And so, you know, that's a pretty radical, you know, stance in our time though.
Yeah.
I silenced you too? No, that's not possible. No, I was kidding.
Well,
that was the you're going, I'm going.
Wait, no, you go. No, I go. You go. Yeah.
So like in like the book of Corinthians, for instance, like Paul, and that's probably one of your best places.
Yes.
Where he's calling into question like sexual dysfunction.
Right.
You know, he talks about like a guy that's sleeping with his stepmother or something, like some craziness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Jerry Springer. Yeah, exactly. But then he starts to speak to the design, I guess, of sexuality. Like speak to that for a minute. Like as far as God's intention for this, you know, that we're sexual beings.
So good, yeah. Paul says some wild things in 1 Corinthians 6, right? That are like fundamental to the human system. He says the body was not meant for sexuality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. And then he says that the one who is joined to a prostitute becomes one flesh with her, right? So what does all this mean? Well, you look at that word joined, it's actually a word that's used to describe fusion, right? Now, I'm not in that field of work, but I do know that like fusion is when two metals are heated up so much that their chemical makeup changes and they become one metal. Yeah. They're bound together. And so this is that whole idea of fragmenting myself. You know, you're looking at an image of a woman who's naked or a video or whatever, and you're saying, I don't know her, she doesn't know me, I'm just experiencing pleasure, it's not a big deal. When in your physical body and in your spiritual self, you're being fused. Yeah. And any man, by the way, who is ever addicted to porn will tell you that that's true, because 20 years later, they can still remember, right? And so you're being fused to that individual. And that fusion was, again, meant for whole life commitment. And so that's the first thing he says is like, this is not to be trifled with. Yeah. It's not just a recreational thing. This will rob you of your life. But then he says that you're actually meant for the Lord. So in other words, sexual activity was never intended to be the ultimate satisfaction in life. Its aim is to point you to an intimacy that's only possible between you and God.
Right.
And so that's the desire of the heart. And so every other attempt to find fulfillment in a relationship will ultimately leave you with less, because, you know, a man fully realized in a relationship with God and a woman fully realized in a relationship with God can enjoy amazing sexual intimacy in marriage. But if I'm looking to the sexual intimacy of my partner to be my fulfillment, it's actually going to destroy the marriage, because she's never going to be able to do that.
So good.
And so I think that's what Paul's warning us against. He's saying you have to understand your design. You're created for a dynamic relationship with God. And it's that relationship with God that brings a sense of self that can then enter into intimacy, sexual intimacy with a partner in a way that's incredibly fulfilling.
Right.
I mean, it's a radical way of thinking about things in the world that we live in, right? But in a biblical frame, it actually makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
You talked about this idea of kind of fragmentation and how God can heal that and restore that. If a guy's feeling that way, like what are the things he can do to kind of participate or cooperate in the healing of that fragmentation.
Yeah, so good, so good. So I love, Proverbs 7 is a masterclass in temptation. And I think that if you want to begin to live a sexually pure life, I urge you, start with Proverbs 7 in the sense that it helps you understand how temptation works. And it's a story about a young man who's kind of like walking through town, right? And there's a woman who approaches him. It says he's kind of like meandering through the town. And so like aimlessness or a lack of purpose is exactly where temptation finds us. And so if I want to be free, I first have to get in the mind of temptation. How does this work? What do I have to look out for? So aimlessness, lack of purpose, this is where temptation finds you. I mean, if you've ever wrestled with addiction, pornography, when was it? It was at 1 a.m. in the morning when no one was around and my computer started talking back to me and saying, come, open me, look at this, right? And so like, these are the moments, aimless moments. Yeah. And so that's where everything starts. She then, she rushes up to him and makes these big promises. In the story, she's like, we're gonna have sex all night long. Mm-hmm. Now listen, I've been married 20 years. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good, but I don't know that it's gonna last 8 hours. Like, let's just be realistic.
I'm not 100% sure that would be positive.
Right? Like, right. Yeah, you can't do anything that long.
There's such a thing as too much of a good
that's
thing.
That's right. It's real. And so, but that's what she promises. And then she says, my husband will never know. And so this will be secret. It won't affect anyone else. These are the promises of temptation. And then it says, suddenly he follows her. And so it's always that instant moment. But then the writer describes him as an ox going to the slaughter, which is like, he doesn't know that it will cost him his life. And if you know that, like in those days, they would literally lead the ox, and the oxen, they don't know that they're about to get slaughtered. And then the owner, the farmer, would just slit their neck really fast. And they would collapse. This massive animal would just collapse and bleed out on the ground. And that's how they're describing sexual temptation. You don't know it's gonna cost you your confidence. You don't know it's gonna cost you your sense of identity. You don't know it's gonna cost you clarity around future purpose. You don't know that it's gonna cost you close relationship with other women and men. Like, you don't know it's gonna cost you financially. Like, you look at the ripple effects of not really dealing with temptation, and it costs you your soul. Yeah. It literally costs your soul. So I think the beginning is becoming aware. And then I always say, like, kind of like a 4-step process. We can get into as much as you want. If I want to live sexually pure, and for me personally, thank you, Jesus, I was in my early days addicted to lust. Like, I know my own mind and my own heart, and I know how broken I was. And for me, that's actually encouraging, because I think, well, then anybody can be free. And now 20 plus years of no porn, no masturbation, none of that stuff, the Lord really setting me free. So I've met so many guys that go, I don't know anybody that's actually lived pure. Yeah. And I would say, I know lots of them. Yeah. That is not an abnormality. Men can live sexually pure decade after decade for God's glory. And so if you don't think that's real, it is real. It is. And it is worth it, and it is liberating. But I think the 4 steps really quick, and we can get into whatever you guys want, but step 1 is just an acknowledgement of my own brokenness, that I'm incapable of really living holy without the grace of God and the help of other people. That's number 1. Number 2 is a deep embrace of accountability. Am I going to really allow another man to know my life in a personal way?
Break that down a little bit for us. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so for me, this started a long time ago. I still have an accountability partner I've had for 20 years. And I went to him. He's older than me. He's been living sexually pure longer than I have. And I said, I don't want to have sexual compromise in my life. And anytime I'm tempted or anytime I compromise, I want to call you and I want to let you know. And so I will not look at a woman naked. I will not watch a movie with some sex scene and nudity. I will not look at porn. I will not masturbate. I will not flirt with another woman ever without you knowing, first of all. And my plan is to not do it. But if I find myself in that direction, you will know immediately. And I'm covenanting with you for the rest of our life. That's my promise to you. And he back to me. And we've kept that promise now, 20 years. But you got to want that. A lot of guys say they want accountability, and then it's like the first time they mess up, they don't say anything. Yeah. And it's like, well, this isn't a detective work. Like, it's not my job to chase you down and kind of.
You didn't ask me the questions. So.
Yeah. No, that's not. No, you have to take personal ownership and say, hey, I'm the one that's going to initiate. And so that's, and then that's where healing comes. You mentioned it last night. Confess your sin one to another, James says, so that you'll be healed. We're forgiven through Jesus and his blood. We're healed through the acknowledgement with our brother. That when we're honest about those things, it brings incredible healing. And so, you have to invite that in your life. Find a man who's a little older, who's living holy and victorious, and then let them into your mess. And for me, that started with a daily phone call. For about 3 months, 4 months. Every day I had to check in because every day my head was a mess with temptation. And then it became every week, and then it became every month. And now we'll touch base a couple times a year, And so it does get a lot easier in the sense of as soon as the boundaries get put up. But so step one, I have to come to terms with my own brokenness. I am not a guy with a little problem. This thing is here to kill me. And if I don't manage sexual temptation in a way that's honorable, it will destroy my life. Now, there's a beautiful joy to sexual intimacy with your wife, incredible joy. There's also tremendous pain, suffering, and sorrow for sexual sin. So those are the first 2 steps.
Well, and then you said there's 4. So broken.
Don't leave us hanging, bro.
Acknowledge our brokenness.
No, let's close in prayer.
Seek accountability.
If you want the other 2, you got to buy the book.
No. It's important on that accountability piece. Like sin thrives in the dark, right?
That's right.
And like having just a safe relationship that's like I'm not not going to lose my job telling this, or like I can tell you this, and you won't judge me. You'll pray with me. Is massive.
Yeah, and it's easy to have an accountability relationship until you have to confess something embarrassing. And then you find out if you really have an accountability relationship or not.
Right.
Because I have a good friend, he always says, embarrassment's a choice. And, we don't think of it like that, but it actually is. Like, why do I have to be embarrassed right now? I'm just going to choose to be humble. Embarrassment's a choice. I choose not to be embarrassed. I'm going to be honest. And so, I think making that choice consistently. And you might do it for a month and you're still literally a day-to-day sex addict. And what I would say is stay on the course. But there are 4 steps. But stay on the course of accountability. That's not the only thing you have to do. But that is essential. So brokenness, accountability. The 3rd step is I call a future vision. And I always challenge guys, like, write down, who do you want to be in 10 years? Who do you want to be in 5 years? What kind of man? What kind of husband? What kind of father? What kind of leader? What kind of person in the church? What kind of business person? And get that picture laser focused. And so this is where I'm headed. And I think a picture of the future is one of the most compelling and powerful things to actually bring freedom from the habitual sexual sin in our life. So that's step 3. And then step 4 is really a deep understanding of the resurrection power of Christ now. And this is the Romans 6 reality. And this for me was personally the great liberator of sex addiction in my life. And it was the reality of the gospel played out in Justin's heart. Which, in other words, I understand that when Christ died, I died. I understand that there was a severing of the authority of sin in my life through the death of Jesus Christ. I understand that when Christ rose, I rose, and that now I have access to a power that is eternal and divine. So the power of God lives in me, and I can now appropriate that power in accordance with temptation when it comes, which means that the very strength of Jesus is living and accessible to those who believe. And so the clearer the gospel got, the more that power became real. And I can remember times being so tempted and then reading through Romans 6 and decreeing the life of Christ in my situation and feeling temptation leave. And being like, it worked. Like I just changed, like the temptation just shifted. Maybe it came back 10 minutes later, but then I did it again. And I realized, wow, there is an actual power to the resurrected Spirit of God living in me now that enables me to break the cycle of sin.
There's been a few times where like if I feel temptation come on, I will pray like Spirit of holiness, like just come over me. And he will. Like if you that's a hard prayer to pray though, because there's a big part of us that wants to be tempted.
Sure.
And I know if I pray that, Jesus will liberate me and give me power. And so it's like sometimes we want to, it's like what's in James that says, each of us sin because we're pulled away by our evil desires, and it's like, I think figuring out though some cues in our lives in those moments, and realizing when we are faithful to like just call on Jesus in that moment, like he's not a philosophy.
Yes.
You know, he's a person, and like there is like the power of the Spirit will enable you in those moments. It's a hard thing to do, to pray it, but if you will pray that and just sit in it for a minute, he will come.
Yeah. One thing I did often in the early days of like daily temptation, before I started to experience some personal victory, is I would, it's almost like lust has a way of drawing you into its spell.
Yes.
Where you don't even know who you are or where you are, and you believe the false promises of Proverbs 7. It's going to be perfect. Yeah. It's going to be pleasurable. No one will know. It's not going to cost me anything. One thing I did, this might sound weird, but when I was probably 21 or 22, there was a pastor in Colorado Springs, Ted Haggard, if you know his name.
Yeah, remember
who
that.
fell into sexual sin, blew up his life, destroyed his church, the whole deal. And I remember that he read, or someone read, I don't think it was him, a letter of repentance to his congregation at the time. And when it happened, I had just read his book about like city transformation. He was kind of like a little hero of mine. And then I found out that he had fallen, and I was so broken by it. I printed out his letter of resignation. And for 2 years, I kept it in my wallet.
Yeah.
And if I was tempted, I would use it like a shock to wake me up. I would literally read the letter and be like, this is not the legacy I want to leave.
Yeah.
This is not the man I want to be. And it would be one of those like, wake up, Justin, wake up from the spell. You know it's not worth it.
Yeah. It's lying to you.
Yeah. This is a deceptive force that, again, sexual pleasure is beautiful. Sexual temptation is an endless black hole that will eat your soul.
AJ, you talked like a month or so ago at King's, you did a sermon, and you told a story about how like sin always, like, I forget how you worded it, about on the front end, and you used the Baconator.
Sin reminds you of the beginning, and it lies to you about the end.
Say it again and tell them the Baconator story.
Sin reminds you of the beginning, and it lies to you about the end. So I told this story about the worst food poisoning I ever got. It was actually right here in Moncton. I literally used a bathroom 5 minutes ago before we started.
We don't need too much detail.
Tell us about the bathroom.
That was where I vomited when I was so sick. But yeah, the worst food poisoning I ever got was from a Baconator that I bought, and the Baconator was delicious.
Yeah,
like it legitimately was a good Baconator.
Yeah.
But the 24 hours of violent illness after was not cool, and sin will remind you how delicious the Baconator was.
Yeah,
and never remind you
of what it cost you.
About your ribs hurting for a week after because you were so violently sick.
So I think a huge theme in this, and I mean, this is why the guys are here. They know, I think we know like how serious like sexual purity is, just even because of the destructive nature of when we get it wrong.
Right.
That said, like one of the things I'm even picking up this theme when we're talking here, like the devil loves to minimize what should be magnified and magnify what should be minimized, and everything kind of gets flipped and inversed. And like one of the I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Justin. One of the mistakes that we've made in the church is, like not just kept like sin in the dark, but because we don't even know how to deal with sexuality at all, we just sort of keep the whole thing in the closet, and like don't do it.
Right.
And it just, it's this really, really bad thing. Save it for your wife when you get married. Like,
Right. Yep.
So what are some ways that we need to, I guess, redeem?
Yeah.
Like what does a healthy Christian sexual ethic look like?
So good. Yeah. When you say, and I want to answer in my view what a healthy Christian sexual ethic looks like, I do think though that like one of the big mistakes is the shame button. That I think, the church pushes all the time. Shame. Like if you're living with sexual temptation, there's shame. I think we have to acknowledge a few things. First of all, 99.999% of men are living with sexual temptation.
Yeah.
Right? Second of all, virtually none of us, our natural impulses align with the biblical mandate. Like it's just not reality, right? And so it's not always same-sex attraction. It's not always something that, the church might shun. It's just men are, I think John said it, one of these sermons, this idea of like, hey, Solomon had hundreds of concubines and it was never enough. And so like every man that I know has some type of sexual temptation or desire that is outside of one woman for the rest of his life. And so you have to say, okay, this is a thing, you know, like this is a thing. And so feeling tempted or failing should not come with this massive shame. It should come with, yeah, we're all in a fight.
Yeah.
We're with you. Get up. Own it. Be honest. And keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And yeah, you are going to take some shots, but if you can get up. I remember my pastor, who was my first accountability partner, the first time I had to go to him, I thought he was going to abandon me, but he didn't. He said, all right, what are you going to do today? Yeah. And I was like, really? You're not abandoning me? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, no, of course not. And that mindset of like, hey, we are in this.
Yeah.
And I'm not going anywhere. To live together, to die together, like I'm with you. And so let's walk together. I think that's the beginning of a healthy sexual ethic, to realize that, you know, when I fail, there are men who are going to walk with me. And there is accountability, there's leadership, all that stuff. But we're not going to abandon one another. We're going to walk together. That's a big piece of it. I think in the covenant of marriage, I think realizing, all right, sex was given to us as an image of our intimacy with Jesus and as an agent of fusion in a marriage that's committed for life, then the marriage partners should joyfully, consistently commit to that, right?
Practice the Sabbath.
Yes. Forget the Sabbath. I don't want one time, right? So, I mean, for us, like, and again, I don't want to put pressure on marriages in a way that's unhealthy, but I'll just tell you what Chrissy and I, what my wife and I have said is we've said, hey, like, we want to kind of like aim for around 3 times a week that we're intimate, you know? Sometimes we spike up, sometimes it's lower, but like we want to be consistently naked together, consistently, you know, intentional around. Is that too real? Was that?
No, it sounds, I mean, I'm thinking about getting home, honestly.
All in favor?
Yeah. No, I mean, because.
My poor son.
Because, hey, better to know, right?
It is.
And so.
That's how you got here, bud.
And again, it's not legalism. I'm not like, hey, it's only been once, let's go. Like, you know, like that's not it. A relationship is dynamic. And by the way, there's consistent investment both ways, right?
Yes.
Like if you're like, yeah, we should be, as a married man, if you're saying, hey, we should be sexually active all the time, it's like, well, when's the last time you dated your wife? When's the last time you really spoke her love language? You know, I know, like my wife, she loves gifts. You know, and so I'm always finding a new way to get her a new thing, you know, and still afford my life. And so, you know, but that's just, she feels so valued when a surprise gift shows up. And so I'm trying to, and time. So I'm always trying to pull away and have time. And what I've found is like, if you, as a man, if you deeply commit yourself to learning her love, how she receives love, and then invest in it consistently. Sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes it takes a year, but I mean, I'm 21 years married this June, and so sometimes dividends take a while to build up, but you will see that intimacy will get better and better and better and better as you keep making investments in the love tank of your partner. And so, you know, I think that when it comes to like what's a healthy intimacy, a healthy intimacy is committed, but also consistent, you know, intentional, and others driven. I don't date my wife so that she has sex with me. I date my wife because I love her.
Yes.
And I want her to know that she is loved deeply and personally. And so that's the reciprocal nature of a healthy relationship. I think of it always as like the Father, Son, Spirit dynamic, right? At the center of the universe, there is a relationship, right? And what are they doing? They're constantly glorifying the other. And so the Son comes to glorify the Father, who then glorifies the Son, who then sends the Spirit that he might glorify Jesus. That, like, the whole point of the Trinity is this constant glorifying and edifying of the other. That's marriage.
Yes.
And so, hey, if I give myself, and I'm not talking about martyr marriage, it's reciprocal, but if I give myself to the blessing of my partner, it does bear fruit. And then you get in this healthy cycle, and it's like, wow, we're actually both looking to bless each other. And
awesome.
It takes a long time. I mean, it takes a long time. I know for us, I don't want to be discouraging, but I would say we kind of hit a sweet spot a year around 11.
Yeah, I would concur with that too.
Which is like, that's a long time. People are like, how about year 1? It's like, no, year 1 was tough.
Same with us.
Year 1 through 4 was kind of tough, actually. Yeah. Year 5 and then year 7 was like real tough. And then by year 11, we were like, yeah, this is getting awesome.
Yeah.
And now we've gone year 11 to year 21 with like a real harmony.
This stuff doesn't happen overnight, right? Like, I mean, you said the word dividends, and like, some of you guys some of you aren't married, some of you have like little kids.
Yeah.
Like each season requires a different level of intentionality, and that intentionality pays off over time. Marriage gets better. It's designed to get better.
That's right.
I think that's part of the lie of sexual temptation too, or part of whatever the appeal is. It is instant gratification, right? Like you don't have to invest anything.
Put the time in.
That's right.
There is no like, you don't plant and then later harvest. Right. You just go to the store and pick it up, kind of a thing.
That's right. Yep.
I wanted to ask you about this whole temptation thing. Like, James talks about being led away by our own evil desires.
Yes.
Or you look at like Jesus in the wilderness, and the enemy comes to tempt him. The first one, turn these stones into bread. Like, that was a temptation, but Jesus was like legit hungry.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Like, what are some of the actual not bad? Like, I think a lot of times we talk about, particularly with men, we talk about sexual temptation. It's just basically like either like you're dirty or this is easy for you.
Right.
What do you think are some of the actual like natural, healthy, beyond just sex, desires, cravings, needs guys have that so often the enemy will go, hey, you could find this over here.
Right. Use sex to satisfy it.
Like, what do you think some of those things are? I know a lot of times guys are not great at like processing what we're actually thinking or feeling, or what do I really need here? What am I really looking for? What am I missing?
Yeah, I mean, I think most men, whether they realize it or not, when they're looking for sex, they're actually not. It's not just hedonism, right? They're not just looking for instant physical pleasure, although that's a part of it. They're looking for validation. They're looking for significance. They're looking for identity. And so a lot of guys, and this is where the gospel has to be center stage in my life. Like, where do I think John Tyson said it last night, like a wholehearted man is a man who finds himself in Christ and then brings his strength to the people in his life. And so am I looking to my spouse to basically create my sense of identity? Am I looking to my spouse to validate my worth? Now, there is a life-on-life daily application of that, where, my spouse does in many ways validate me, in many ways affirm me, but I have to have a deeper source. And so it's not an either or, it really is a both and. First, I'm validated in Christ. First, I'm a son of the Lord. First, I'm loved by God and chosen. And when that becomes my foundation, sex changes.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be my source of purpose or value anymore. It can be a really wonderful, enjoyable part of our union in marriage. But I don't need you to tell me I'm someone, or that I'm incredible, or that I'm special through just a sexual experience. I already have that in Christ, and the sexual experience affirms that, strengthens that. But I think, what am I looking for in sexual intimacy is a very important question. I found in my own soul, I really wasn't looking for just physical pleasure. I was looking for a sense of power, a sense of value, a sense of significance. And by the way, pornography, illicit relationships, they backfire big time. Yeah. They give you that for a second, and then they just rip your heart out on the back end. And so, I talk to so many guys who are like emotionless, void of passion, void of purpose, and the root of it is how they were robbed because of sexual sin in their life.
You make a great point. Like, usually guys will fall into pornography out of some deficit. That's, again, your soul is just longing for something. And, and every guy's wired a little bit different, but like, it might actually not be about the physiological component at all. It's like, my life's out of control, so I'm going to control something.
Yeah. Yep.
Or I've been, stepped down on, and so I want to just have something that I feel like I'm the master of, or whatever. Like, there's a bunch of ways the enemy will take a dysfunction and a deficiency and turn it into a dysfunction.
Yeah.
I loved what you said about the whole, like, you can receive some of those things from your spouse,
right?
But that can't be their job.
Yes.
And one of the things I find as a truism is that to emotionally healthy people, insecurity is actually not attractive.
Right.
And if you have that, like, if you can find your security somewhere else, you will actually be more attractive to your spouse.
Yeah.
Than if you're coming to her going like, I need you to validate me and I need you to, like,
Yeah.
like who wants that, right? Like, and so, yeah, I don't, I just, that's a fascinating kind of perspective. I like that.
I remember years ago, I was watching an interview with John Maxwell and his wife, and they asked her, you know, in your marriage, you know, have you found over these years with leadership that John really makes you happy? And she stopped and she said something so simple. She goes, it's not John's job to make me happy. And that alone, like, was worth the price of admission. I was like, wow. Like, she said the problem with most marriages is that we assume it's the job of our spouse to make us happy. And that's why they have shoes they can never fill, right? And so I have to go to the Lord with all my brokenness, all my deficiencies, all my deepest needs, find a deep source with him, and then bring that to the marriage. And then my spouse will make me incredibly happy. Right? But if I go from a place of barrenness and emptiness and insecurity and expect the other, my spouse, to answer those questions, they never can. No matter how much they give, no matter how wonderful they are, it will never be enough. And, you know, I was just talking with a guy I've walked with now for years and years and years. Before he was a Christian, he had cheated on his wife more times than he can remember. And this guy, I mean, more times than he can remember. And it's wild because this was a guy who on the outside seemed to have it all. Really successful business, every girl he ever wanted. I met him right after he tried to kill himself.
Wow.
And so he tried to kill himself. God miraculously intervened. It's a wild story. But, and from that time, he's now learning a life of sexual purity. And it's really hard because we have conversations all the time where he'll call me and he'll say, like, I'm starting to believe the lie again. That if I just run into the arms of a woman, I'll feel important.
Right.
But he already knows, like, where did that lead? It led to the verge of suicide. That's where it led. I had every girl in the world and I wanted to kill myself. It's like, well, that doesn't, you're supposed to feel the most validated of all if the myth is true, right? And so it's like, he knows it, and yet still, even with that experience, his mind will have moments where he has to call me and say, remind me.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is who we are. We are not rational beings.
Yes.
There's a spiritual component where we can be deceived.
Yeah.
And we have to know that about ourselves, which keeps us in a place of dependence on God.
I want to talk for a second, like, we're coming towards the end here, but about grace. And, like, you know, we have the whole struggle, but, like, the Lord does not leave us, you know, unequipped in the battles we have to fight. Like, there's grace. I want to talk first about some common grace. So there's the idea of, like, you know, there's God's like grace isn't a divine enablement, but there's also just stuff he's given us that helps us, like that's just available to us. What are some, like, common guardrails? Like, what's some wisdom for us, like, just to sort of put up some fences? And
yeah, you got to know yourself, right? So I'll speak for myself, right? Like, I did a genogram, a family tree, and I looked back as many generations as I could figure out in my family. And I could not find one healthy, functional marriage that had lasted 20 years.
Wow.
Not one on either side of my family, right? And so I got to know what I'm walking in with. Like, I'm walking in with a lot of unfaithfulness, a lot of divorce, a lot of sexual brokenness, sexual abuse in my family line on both sides. And so I realized early on that I am the equivalent of a drug addict in the area of sexuality. I learned that about myself, which means that I need some pretty consistent common grace boundaries. I don't judge other men. You know, if they say, listen, this isn't a struggle for me, all right, whatever, that's fine. I mean, this may sound legalistic. This is not out of a place of legalism. It's out of a place of knowing yourself. You know, my wife has 100% access at all times to my computer, to my phone, to any device that I own. As does my job. You know, so there's that accountability. But another one, which sounds silly, but I haven't watched a TV show or a movie in 20 years without first looking at IMDb.
Yeah. What's in this?
Yeah. And listen, if there's like sexual content in it, nudity, I'm just not going to watch it. And for me, again, it's like, yeah, alcoholics don't hang out at bars. Like, it's just like, for me, I'm just not going to watch it. And that means there's a lot of movies that I haven't seen. Yeah. And there are people like, oh, just fast forward it. And I'm like, that's fine for you. Yeah. I know myself, if I'm watching it, I'm gonna be thinking about it the whole time. Yeah. And I can't even enjoy the movie because I'm worried or wondering when this or who is, it's gonna mess with my head. And so, another little rule, it's funny, we were in the hotel last night, my son and I were talking about it. I found that whenever I'm scrolling or flipping, my mind goes to hunting.
Yes.
And so I don't scroll the TV. I find the guide. Yep. And I go, all right, I'm going to that station. I don't scroll social for the same reason, because I flip. I mean, listen, men are hunter-gatherers.
Totally.
I flip into hunt mode, and it's like, wait a minute, what am I looking for right now?
Well, and getting pulled away by your evil desires, back to the scrolling thing, like you can, the tempter and the thing inside of me knows, like, if I just scroll long enough, my algorithm's gonna know I'm a red-blooded dude, and it's gonna show me something. Like, I didn't look for it though.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like,
plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Well, and people say, like, and I've had guys say to me, like, that sounds like so legalistic. It sounds so like bondage. And I'm like, time out. We have a false vision of freedom.
Yes.
Like, freedom is not do whatever you want. The guys who do whatever they want end up slaves. They're either a slave to sex, or they're a slave to money, or they're a slave to their career. Bob Dylan said it you gotta serve somebody. Yeah. It will be the devil or it's gonna be the Lord, but you will be serving someone. So, my default is slavery to Jesus is ultimate freedom. Yes. And so by creating guardrails, I find peace in my marriage, confidence with my sons, joy in my career, fruitfulness in my resources and finances, because they're aimed and focused and intentional. So, like, the joy that I get from limits far outweighs the boundaries. And they're self-imposed. They're not, required of me. But I have learned myself. Yeah. And so those are some practical ones. And then keeping a guy, not just one, but 2 or 3 men in my life that are checking in on my soul. Yeah. And specifically around sexual temptation.
What does grace, like, again, how does the grace enable the guy? Let's talk to singles for a minute.
Yeah.
So, there's a huge portion of the male population and even within the kingdom, like Paul himself, who was writing this, was a single man, and he seemed quite content in that.
Yep.
How does the gospel, knowing Jesus, like, what encouragement do you have for the guys that are single here, fighting the good fight?
Yeah. So where I come from, we're in New England. Most of the people in my church are new Christians, and we'll teach them fasting. And they think that if they skip a meal, they might die. Right? Like, if I skip lunch, I might go to the hospital, right? And like, we have to actually teach them, hey man, you can actually not eat for multiple days. In fact, it's good for you. It clears out your system, it's healthy, and you won't die. And so there's a paradigm shift that has to happen that's like, and one of the narratives of our day is you are not a whole person if you're not having sex. And as a single person, if you don't fight that lie, you're gonna lose, because you're always gonna feel like you're missing out. And it's like, well, pause. Jesus was the most complete person to ever live, and he never had sex, right? And so having sex does not make me a complete person, right? Jesus makes me a complete person. So there has to be, so you can skip a meal and not die, right? And so we have to get a paradigm shift around where does identity come from, what's possible. You cannot have sex for 10, 20, 30 years and live a full, complete, joyful life.
Yes.
And so I think for singles, that's the first thing, do I actually believe that?
Don't believe the lie.
Yeah, because I've been discipled in a culture that says, no, you can't. And so I think for singles, that's the first encouragement. Let's get that truth deep in our bones. You're gonna need accountability. Yeah, physiologically, your body will shift, right? If you're not sexually active, as a man, your body produces less semen. You're not going to be as sexually tempted if you starve your flesh for an extended time. And so, your body will adjust. I think John was talking about
what was that? What
wet dreams earlier, but
no, what was the group he was talking about? They have erectile dysfunction.
The no fap.
That was news for me. I don't know.
Too.
Yeah, I was like, I don't even want to know about that. Yeah. But yeah, so your body will actually physiologically adjust. You are going to need men in your life for accountability. And then, I think as a single man, you have to pre-decide. right? Like one of the things, and my wife and I, before we were married, we dated 5.5 years and got married not having sex, right? So that's a really long time to not have sex, you know? And we just pre-decided. And one thing I would say to the man, if you're dating, you have to lead, right? Every problem in the world started with Adam being passive. So, you know, specifically around sexuality, you have to lead. Like I literally said to my girlfriend, just so you know, I won't touch you there. I won't do this. We won't be here. And so whatever boundaries you're going to set up, that's not one size fits all, but you don't want to find yourself having sex. And so you have to decide ahead of time and tell her. Yeah. And then hold each other, you know, have an outside accountability that you're actually talking to. But if you don't pre-decide, then you're just going to be tempted and then have regrets.
Last thing, and I want you to pray for us, but is, okay, so whether it's, we got young guys in here or older guys, like take us through what is a healthy way to deal with our sin in the area of like our sexuality. Say like, okay, somebody looked at porn last night or whatever. Like the enemy wants to, you know, bait us into that and then shame us into the dark and keep us in these cycles of hiding it and then going back to it. Right. Give us kind of a gospel, like you know, to our young men especially, like I wish, just make sure you know this in the struggle.
Yeah, I think, you know, do you believe the gospel of Jesus Christ, which says that you are far too sinful to ever earn salvation, and yet so deeply loved that Christ came to completely, fully, forever forgive your past, present, and future sins? Because this is where everything begins. If I don't believe that fully, then I'm going to try to use sex as a way to earn points with God or a disqualifying factor because I sinned and God can't forgive me. So you have to begin with like, do I actually believe the blood of Christ can purge me of my debt and sin? And so if you confess your sin to the Lord, if you come to him and repent, he will forgive you. And there are so many examples in Scripture to mess with our assumptions because we go, well, Justin, it's been 1,000 times. Well, Jesus said, forgive your brother 70 times 7, right? Infinite. Or you say, well, I've done too much. You don't know what I've done. Well, Paul murdered and killed Christians and God used him as the greatest apostle. How are you doing, right? So we have all these different frames to go, oh, maybe it does apply for me. Maybe grace really does apply for me. So first thing to break the cycle of sexual sin in your life is come to the Lord, repent, come broken. Don't make a barter, don't make a wager, don't make some promise you can't keep. Just collapse and say, I believe that you forgive me. That's the starting point. And so that's where you begin. From there, you invite a brother. You invite a brother along, you begin an accountability relationship, you commit to them, no hiding. And I've walked with hundreds of men through the process of freedom. I've seen many, many, many live in habitual freedom. The guys that don't are always the guys that hide. Not the guys that fail, the guys that hide.
Yes, totally.
And so, that's the next big step.
I'd love to just highlight like some things that Justin said that I think I want to make sure we all hear. Like sexual purity is possible.
Yes.
It is legitimately possible. Like the struggle and the battle is always there, and you always have to be vigilant and diligent. But, you know, every adult man doesn't have to struggle with pornography and masturbation. Like it's truly possible. What you said about if you sin and if you fail, go quickly to Jesus. Like go quickly to him and start at the knowledge that my relationship with him, just because I failed in this area, like I'm not in any better or worse standing with God. Like my righteousness is from him. I think the enemy will quickly, we just go right into that. We just go right into the, well, I was a 8 out of 10 on the Christian goodness scale. Now I'm back to a 1 and I got to get back. No, you were always a 1.
Right. You were always a -5, and so was I. Yeah. And it's only grace that allowed us to start.
Yeah, but that's immediately. And you face that in your adulthood. If you get into ministry, you know, like that thing of, hey, I had a bad week or my eyes wandered or whatever, and like, who am I to do this? You know, like, well, I never was anyone to do this.
Yeah, just one thought on this, and I just want to say it again because I think it's so important. The culture, the world will tell you, sex is fun, just make it recreational, or sex is gonna complete you, it's gonna fulfill you, it's gonna tell you who you are, give you an identity. And so we hear that in every movie, most songs, everything else. It's so important to hear. And then the church comes back with sex is bad, sex is dirty, don't do it. You know, and so the Christian man is like, well,
what is it?
Their story sounds a lot better than our story. You have to realize that holiness is joy.
Yes.
That commitment to one person for life is far more satisfying. And sociologists will tell you that's actually true. That far more satisfying than multiple partners. That not engaging in sexual sin is the most liberating, joy-filled, wholehearted life that you could possibly live. And it's doable and it's livable. It's not just me. In my community of leaders, there are a number of men that we've held each other accountable. Now we're going on decade after decade of not looking at porn, not masturbating, living this thing out in the secret places of our lives, and then experiencing the compounding confidence, joy, peace, intimacy with Christ that grow. And so you just have to catch a vision like this is possible, and it is the most full life that you could live.
Go after it.
Yeah.
If you fail,
get up.
Go to Jesus.
Yeah.
There's new mercies every morning.
Yes.
We need to be really good at pursuing God's high standard, and when we fall short of it, knowing exactly what to do with that, to go to Him. Would you pray for us?
Yeah. Lord Jesus, we pray that even now, that every man listening to this today, Lord, that you would light in our hearts a passion to pursue you. Jesus, even as Job said, I made a covenant with my eyes. Lord, I pray that with our eyes, that with our minds, that with our actions, that we would make a covenant unto you, Jesus, that we would seek you with our whole heart, that you might be found. Lord, I pray for the man right now who is living in the dark, that he's got all these habits that are just kind of hiding in corners, and that he's being unwilling to share with anyone else. Jesus, give him the courage to step into the light. Lord, not to be shamed, not to be condemned, but to be welcomed and strengthened by his brothers. And Lord, I do pray that you break the spell of our culture that would promise high and deliver so low. Yeah. Lord, we have so much evidence all around us of the brokenness and the unmet promises of a loose sexuality. I pray that you give us a vision to live the fullness of our lives with sexual intimacy in the covenant of marriage. And experience the joy and the peace and the love and the fulfillment that can come through that. Yeah. Lord, we know that this does not come naturally to our flesh. And so retrain us in accordance with your grace. Yeah. And just walk with us, we pray, Holy Spirit, unto freedom in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, man.
And down like water, that's where